Welcome. Good evening. Board is coming back out of the closed section, so welcome again to the regular Board of Education amended October 18, 2021. Coming out of closed session, and we need to do roll call. Superintendent?
Mr. Short?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Hoover?
Here.
Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mr. Huey?
Here.
Ms. Gao? Here. All are accounted for.
Moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Who are we going to use today? Carrie Kay. Is she here?
Yes, she is.
Okay, let's use Carrie Kay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you. A broadcast and recording is being made at the direction of the board, and the broadcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. The meeting is being live streamed on the district's YouTube channel. The public's health and well-being are the top priority of the Board of Trustees of Folsom Cordova Unified School District, and you are urged to take all appropriate health and safety precautions. Folsom Cordova Unified School District Board Policy 1330 promotes mutual respect, civility, orderly conduct among employees, parents, and the public. We will treat staff, parents, and members of the public with respect and expect the same in return. If any member of the public uses obscenities or communicates in a demanding, loud, insulting, and or demeaning manner, the board will calmly and politely admonish the person to communicate civilly. Written comments were accepted until 3 p.m. today. These comments were emailed to the board prior to the board meeting for review and will not be read out loud during the meeting. At the direction of the board, the superintendent will call roll to acknowledge the board received all electronic comments submitted by 3 p.m. today as it pertains to today's board meeting. Superintendent?
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Huey?
Aye.
Ms. Gao? Aye. All are accounted for.
Thank you. A statement on the face coverings. As a reminder, in addition to the state health order and corresponding face covering guidance, the Sacramento County Board of Public Health local order issued on July 29th remains in place, requiring face coverings in all indoor public settings and workplaces, including school settings. Copies of the county's health order are available for anyone who wishes to review during the meeting. Folsom Cordova Unified School District requires all in-person attendees at the board meetings to wear face coverings regardless of vaccine status. For those who do not have a mask, one will be provided for you. In accordance with the advice of the legal counsel for the district and the most current orders by the California Department of Public Health and the County of Sacramento health officers, please be advised that the board is legally required to ensure all attendees, regardless of vaccination status, except individuals who are specifically exempted pursuant to the CDPH mandate, wear face coverings while attending this meeting in person. The only exemptions are as follows: persons younger than 2 years old, persons with a medical condition, mental health condition, or disability that prevents wearing a mask, persons who are hearing impaired or communicating with a person who is hearing impaired, where the ability to see the mouth is essential for communication. Persons unable to wear a face covering based on medical or mental health exemptions may be subject to a request for verification. In addition, persons exempted from wearing a face mask due to medical or mental conditions must wear a non-restrictive alternative, such as a face shield with a drape on the bottom edge, as long as their condition permits it. The district does allow members of the public to attend the board meetings in a virtual format, which is described on the board's district website at folsomcordova.usd.org. Sorry for the long statement, but that's, hopefully everybody's having a good evening. We'll move on to our agenda. Hold on here. Moving on to item 5, reporting out the closed session. Superintendent?
There was no action to report out from closed session.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 6, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Have a second?
Second.
Mr. Clark and did
Mr.
I?
Hoover?
Oh, Mr. Hoover. Okay, I thought I heard me. Mr. Hoover, say roll call, please.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover.
Aye.
Mr. Clark.
Aye.
Mr. Hui.
Aye.
Ms. Gao. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the item 7, public participation. This is where we allow the public, given speakers the discretion at the board chair, the law allows the public to address the board on a matter not on the agenda, but as the law prohibits action by the board on the non-agenda items. No, we cannot address people that's not on the agenda. We have quite a bit of speakers tonight. We're going to start off with this one right here, this set right here, right? And we'll limit 2 minutes. Please step up to the podium and speak loudly through your mask. And we'll start off with Ramisa Chalapia? Sorry, yeah. Okay, I'm going to read them.
Good evening, respected members of the school board, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here on behalf of the Folsom Cricket Club and Sacramento Youth Cricket Association. This is regarding the facilities that have been provided to us to play the sport of cricket since the year 2007. So we worked with the school board at that time, as well as the principal, Mr. Kanan Peterson, who is now the principal of Mangini Elementary School, as well as the current principal, we continue to work with, Mr. Johnson. And the facility has provided the cricket-loving community a great opportunity to continue the sport that is loved by many across the world. And you know, in a period of years, over this whole period, we have grown leaps and bounds, and you know, we have done a lot of charity tournaments, you know, for the community, for the I Foundations, as well as donations to the Theodore Judah Elementary School. And you know, we have provided, at least you know, in our conversations with the principal and rest of the school staff and the parents there, we have provided a kind of a sense of calm and peace over the weekends, where we play cricket, which is obviously called a gentleman or a gentlewoman game. And you know, over this period, would like to thank, first of all, the late great Mr. Ernie Sheldon, who helped us get this back in 2007, as well as Mr. Eric King. And on the insistence of Mr. Y.K. Chellam, who is our Folsom City Council member, we are here to give our appreciation, or appreciate what the school board has done for us over this number of years for the Folsom Cricket Club. And now with the advent of Sacramento Youth Cricket Association, we have been doing a lot of great things against teams and clubs with better facilities in the Bay Area counties. So, and as you can see, and I'll let a couple of the members talk about it as well, we have beaten them in the U13 age group finals this past week. We wanted to just showcase and kind of say thank you to the school board for giving us this opportunity. And with a bit more facilities, we can do even more wonders and bring reputation and credibility to the city of Folsom in terms of the sports that we play. So I again thank you. I appreciate it, and I'll give the podium to my son Pranil, who is a member of SUSCA, to talk a few words. Thank you.
Hello, esteemed members of the FCUSD School District. My name is Pranil Chalapilla, and I'm currently a 10th grader at Vista Del Lago High School. I have been a sports enthusiast my entire life. I've played both basketball and volleyball at a competitive level since I was a 5th grader. And I'm actually currently on the JV volleyball team at Vista Del Lago. I've played cricket since I was a young kid and have loved the sport my entire life. My earliest memories come from the Theodore Judah Club, Theodore Judah Cricket ground, where I've played since I was a little kid. The aforementioned ground has been a key part in helping us win a lot of tournaments against Bay Area teams with better facilities. In fact, we won the U13 Super League Cup, as my dad mentioned, and we actually have 2 of our players that were on the team, Shreyas and Coven. We actually also have the U16 final this weekend, and which I am sure we will win. Going forward, I am sure we can win even more tournaments with better facilities and as my dad has talked about. And again, I just want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak about this sport that I'm so passionately love, and I would love to get better at with better facilities with your esteemed board's help. And now I'll give it on to my coach Naresh to speak more about the facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranil. Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. These kids talk a lot more eloquently than we could, so thank you again. When we started this youth program, we started with 2 kids, and we now have about 45 kids, ranging from 5-6-year-old all the way to 17. 2 of our kids are knocking on the national team's doors right now, trying to make it to the national team. 4 of our kids are knocking on the under 19 team. And all we need is a little bit of help in terms of facilities. What we have is amazing, and we are able to do wonders with what we have. But would love for the board to help us get to the next level in terms of improved facilities, more access to the restrooms, basic stuff that we could do. Just to reiterate what we have been able to achieve, we have the best under 16 player on our team right now from the nation. Best under 13 player is on our team. Best catcher is on our team. Best bowler is on our team. And we are talking about all age groups. And this is with one facility. Imagine if we have 4 or 5 facilities in the schools here, we could do wonders. Our vision for the youth here is that we look forward to, instead of playing with Bay Area teams or playing with teams from LA, play amongst ourselves and have them come here once in a while, as opposed to we traveling all the time. So hope is that we have a team from Theodore Judah playing against another team from the school district, or Folsom School District playing with Placerville, and have the sport grow here like soccer did. Thank you again for your time. We would like to, obviously would like to work with you, see how we can get some improved facilities here and just get these kids to the next level and compete at the national level. Thank you.
Thank you. I presume that was Pranil and Narisa was also.
And I was Coach Naresh Sabnis with SYC.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So the other 2 folks that you've had.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Patricia Stoddard.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patricia, and I am a teacher at a local preschool. I don't have long, so I'll be brief. Since COVID-19 hit our shores, a total of 5.2 million cases of COVID have been confirmed for 0 to 17-year-olds, with 542 total deaths. That is a survival rate of almost exactly 99.9%. This is a conservative estimate on cases, as nearly every antibody study completed and approved by the CDC has confirmed that the actual cases is nearly double the confirmed cases, giving us a survival rate of 99.995% for 0 to 17-year-olds. Research into the deaths of these children has determined that more than 90% of them were suffering from significant pre-existing conditions when they contracted COVID. Therefore, if a child 0 to 17 and is at least moderately healthy, the research gives us a survival rate of 99.999%. And that is only if they contract COVID, which is a lower number. So, is the argument that the children may spread it to the elderly? Per the CDC, the survival rate for all age groups that are vaccinated is approximately 99.99%. I challenge everyone here to honestly say they didn't know someone that had anywhere from mild to severe side effects from the COVID vaccines. There are 0 long-term studies on these vaccines, but confirmed side effects, and the plan is to force children to take this when they are nearly 10 times more likely to die on the ride to school than actually contracting this disease. Are we going to be the first generation to sacrifice the health of young for the sake of the elderly? The society that chooses that path is lost. We are pro-vaccine, but we are anti-mandate. Kids are not at risk from COVID, and neither are the vaccinated. So therefore, we should not mandate our children to wear masks or to get the vaccine. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Jeanette Phelps, please.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Feltz, and I have an 8-year-old grandson in this school district. I understand that there are laws that you guys have to abide by, that you guys have to enforce as a district, but I would love to see some of you at least stand up and tell us what we can do. You guys know where the roadblocks are, you know what we're up against, and you know this isn't right. These kids, she just stated some amazing facts. I'm not going to lay them back out for you. These kids are being damaged in this adult war we've got going on. The science has shown that they are not threatened by COVID. They're not a threat to others. 6 feet never had scientific support. The masks do more harm than good. And their mental and physical health has suffered during this pandemic. Now they want to inject them with a experimental drug that affects, for something that affects far less than 1%. Less than 1%. Not once have I heard a reasonable argument that helps us understand why all of this insanity over something that affects less than 1%. What happens to this district when the first kid has a serious adverse effect? What happens to this district when the first kid dies as a result of the vaccine? I know a lot of the decisions made by this district have to do with the liability. And that's the world we live in, and I get that, but there's a great liability there. I mean, that's aside from the fact that we can't let that happen. We can't put them in a position and force them to take an experimental drug that can do them grave harm. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's all we have for public participation. The other ones would be during an agenda item. Okay, so we're moving on to,
Mr. Short,
yes.
I
Oh,
have a public participant from Zoom.
okay. Can you bring them?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
Ria, are you there?
Good evening. My name is Ria Shrivastava, and I'm a junior at Visilago High School and an organizer with Gen at FCUSD. I would like to start by discussing the school-to-prison pipeline in the district. There is a huge racial disparity within FCUSD. Data reported by the California School Dashboard for FCUSD reports that Black youth are vastly overrepresented when it comes to being labeled as emotionally disturbed, referrals to law enforcement, arrests, graduation rates, suspension, and expulsion rates. And in the 2015 to 2016 school year, Black students were 25 times more likely to be arrested than their white peers and 8 times more likely to be referred to law enforcement. Interactions with police at a young age can have lifelong impacts, a trend known as the school-to-prison pipeline. This local data, when coupled with decades of research regarding the ineffectiveness of SROs, proves the very real existence of the school-to-prison pipeline in the district. The Southern Poverty Law Center finds that students in schools where SROs are stationed are 5 times more likely to be arrested than students in schools without SROs. As stated in the board meeting, over half of SRO infractions in the last in-person school year were related to substance abuse. We are criminalizing students, primarily students of color, for issues that should be dealt with by administration and counseling. When students are suspended, expelled, or arrested, they miss out on essential classroom instruction and are more likely to become disengaged from school and come in contact with the juvenile justice system. Detention in the juvenile justice can increase the youth dropping out of school. The increase in juvenile detention and school dropout increases the probability of adult incarceration. The CDC finds that students who have a strong connection to school become less likely to commit crimes and engage in unhealthy behavior as adults. Having armed police on campus disrupts the trust that students create with their schools. Schools become places of criminalization rather than places of growth. In the special board meeting on July 20th, 2021, Mr. Meyer explained that our campus monitors are trained in de-escalation, turning infractions into, quote, teaching moments, restorative practices, and more. He also stated that they are always looking for professional development. As stated earlier, when a student commits an infraction, our first goal should always be to allow them to grow from the incident. We should value their growth more than their punishment. This role is already being fulfilled by campus monitors, and by hiring more campus monitors and expanding their roles, restorative practices will improve. Students will be protected by people who come from their neighborhoods and who are familiar with them and their campus. I will keep repeating the statistic at every board meeting until action is taken. Black students are 25 times more likely to be arrested on an FCUSD campus than white students. This issue needs to be prioritized. Each passing day that FCUSD employs police agencies on campus, you ignore the pressing needs of each of our minority students. I ask you to show us where your priorities lie. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other folks on?
No, Mr. Short.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving back to number 8, reports of district organizations, Student Advisory Board.
Thank you and good evening. At our last meeting, we discussed our Student Advisory Board annual project, which meant brainstorming key issues that students believed needed more focus, such as mental health, SAB publicity, and enhanced student voice. We settled on hosting 1 or 2 district-wide student forums, and we'll draw from the parent forums that the district has held in incorporating affinity groups and, if possible, holding it in Rancho Cordova to receive more equal participation across the district. We also discussed cell phone use on campus, and we received a wide variety of responses, from making sure that teachers are able to keep students engaged, to having an understanding of the role that cell phones play in student lives within and outside of school, implementing punishment where necessary, whether that be confiscation or limitations, and introducing the dangers of cell phone use and educating students on how to use them responsibly. We also had a presentation from Ms. Kay and Dr. Blackburn about school-based health centers, so I'd just like to thank them for seeking out student feedback on those. And our next meeting will be Wednesday, November 10th at 10 a.m. on Microsoft Teams.
Thank you. California School Employees Association.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Collegian. Given the board's interest in more specifics about how classified employees perceive the value and need for school resource officers, CSEA launched a survey and has some preliminary results. Regarding having SROs on campus and patrolling around campus, and this is preliminary, 90% of classified employees feel either much safer or somewhat safer having SROs involved in our campuses, patrolling or on campus. 10% feel either no safer or less safe. Regarding how many SROs we should contract for, 50% said we should go back to 6 SROs. About a third said we should continue with 4 SROs, and about 70% said fewer or no SROs. So that's when we get complete data, we will share that with you, but that's where we're at this point on the survey. And regarding the Pacific Charter School petition, we will be participating at that time when it comes up on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Folsom Cordova Education Association.
Good evening. This has really been a year of transition. Well, last year was a year of chaos in some ways, but we're seeing a lot of transition this year as we change and adjust our sails with new programs, new technology, like the Promethean boards coming in that are very exciting, but something else that teachers and students need to learn about. But in spite of those changes and things happening, teachers are plowing through as they always would, doing report cards, preparing for parent conferences. It has been a challenging few months though, and it's only October, and I'm seeing a lot of stress in our members, but I'm seeing it across the board. I'm seeing it with our support staff. I'm seeing it even in admin sometimes. There's just a lot going on, a lot of balls in the air for all of us. So I was just really reflecting on that today because I've had a few things come my way that I know are coming from a place of stress. And just kind of a reminder to all of us that we need to show each other grace and kindness just as we preach to our children, and rely on each other, trust each other, to help each other through this time, because we will get through it, but it is a time of transition, and we just need to give ourselves a little bit of grace as we move forward and get through this year together. And as Mr. Thomas said, I'm also going to be speaking on new Pacific Charter Schools later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Also Cordova Leadership Association.
Good evening, Dr. Klegian, President Short, and distinguished board members. Tonight, instead of a presentation, I am speaking on behalf of the Folsom Cordova Leadership Association as the president to represent the members of the leadership, many of who are here with us this evening. The Folsom Cordova Leadership Association is composed of the certificated managers, classified managers, and confidential leadership within the district. We do not belong to a union and do not have the same negotiating powers as CSEA and FCA. As the leaders of the district, we have worked tirelessly throughout the pandemic, leading our staffs through the uncertainties of spring 2020, when we were all tasked with completing a school year on distance learning and entering through a new territory of educational leadership that none of us had been prepared for, nor experienced in our career previously. Along with many classified members, we were working the Monday after the school closures and into the next several weeks on campus distributing meals and Chromebooks and other resources when we were not even sure of the risks of COVID ourselves at that time. We continued to work throughout the summer of 2020 in preparation for the uncertainties of the school year to follow. We did not get a summer break that year, as we were needed in meetings to make sure we were meeting all mandates of the state and county and the directives of the board as we prepared for a school year that was completely filled with unknowns. Yet we did this willingly, and we believe we did it well. We led this district under the direction of Dr. Kaligian to meet the needs of the students, staff, and families as best we possibly could, despite all the requirements that were being asked of us. As a group, we did not bring forth any complaints nor requests of the board, as we quietly strove to lead with integrity and do what was necessary to meet our obligations. We led through distance learning, returning to a hybrid model, and meeting the requirements of COVID mandates. We continued to support students, staff, faculty, and families, despite the added work on our own plates while still meeting our own families' needs. Some of us battled COVID ourselves and lost family members to the pandemic also during this time. We did our jobs willingly, as we understand the expectations that falls on leadership shoulders in times of crisis. Now, fast forward to this school year and the many challenges that are being faced. We know the staffing shortages have impacted everyone. The FCLA members have stepped up to the plate once again with no added time, compensation, nor additional support provided to us. And I can say that I work with an incredible group of leaders. I am impressed and honored to serve as the president to represent this group of dedicated and hardworking individuals. But I do need to share with the board on behalf of my colleagues that we too are exhausted, and the toll of the last 2 years has left us all feeling depleted. We have been working with Dr. Kaligian and Mr. Ogden in the meet and confer sessions to see how the FCLA membership can gain acknowledgement and support. 2 years ago, the certificated management was given 3 voucher days in our contract based upon an MOU at that time. And unfortunately, due to COVID, for many, these days were never received. This year, on top of the obvious additional requirements placed on leadership, with the COVID quarantines, the lack of staff on sites, and other effects of the current situation that's facing education, your leadership team is also concerned about safety, as there have been incidents already afflicting school sites. You as a board are aware of these issues. We appreciate the district bringing together the District Safety Steering Committee, of which I serve on as a secondary principal representative. I know that this committee is considering a number of aspects of school safety. However, the process is ongoing, and there are needs to support administrative leadership on campuses now. Those of us who serve as administrators are responsible for the safety of students and staff on campus whenever an incident on our campuses occur, and we are asking that the board be cognizant of what we are daily dealing with to maintain a safe campus so that students can learn. Please know we are happy to serve in our roles. We are dedicated and we serve in our positions professionally and very proudly. But we are often a quiet entity within the FCUSD community. We ask that you please remember us and acknowledge us when decisions are being made. Our mental wellness and health is important and critical to the progress of this district. And please, we ask that you remember your leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. District English Learner Advisory Committee.
My apologies, I was moved by my colleagues, so thank you for that. Elena Cabrera, good evening, Superintendent Collegian, President Short, members of the board, and my esteemed colleagues. I have the pleasure of introducing and bringing up with me Ms. Ana Silvia Pimentel, our Secretary of DELAC, who will be speaking on behalf. We just had our meeting on Tuesday of this month. There are a couple of topics that I'll cover quickly, and she has a message on some, a comment to a couple of them to contribute so that we can consider. We discussed at our last DELAC meeting ESSER, and there was some wonderful discussion around the support for expanded learning, the summer school, and we look forward to having summer school again. Our parents appreciated that and felt that it was a really great way to begin to recover any of the instructional time that may have been lost. We also discussed the New Pacific Charter School, and there's some reluctance, and there will be some communication to that. And we also discussed and shared again the Parent Summit, which is set for November 2nd, and we invite you cordially to participate in that event. November 2nd from 5 to 7:30. So with that, Ana Silvia.
Mi nombre es Ana Silvia Pimentel, soy la secretaria del DELAC y soy parte del ELAC de la escuela de mis hijos. La razón por la que estoy aquí es porque ahora que los niños regresaron a la escuela, nos hemos dado cuenta que tienen un nivel de académico un poco más bajo debido a las consecuencias del COVID.
I'm going to just pause her there. Ms. Ana Silvia Pimentel, she is a parent in our district and also an ELAC representative at one of the sites, as well as the DELAC officer. She is speaking on behalf of the consequences of COVID and having our children return to school. She's noticed that they have become, there is a lower performance or even participation on behalf of instruction. So.
Una de las razones por las que estos niños están sufriendo consecuencias es porque los papás, bueno, como sabemos, cerraron negocios, niños se fueron a casa a tomar sus clases virtuales y los niños que se quedaron en casa, muchos tuvieron el apoyo de sus papás.
Okay. So part of the consequences or the delay in acquiring the instruction is, of course, we went to online learning, and some of these children were at home, and some of their parents were not at home to support them with the learning, even though they were online. So she will continue with that. So, okay.
Los papás que tuvieron la oportunidad de agarrar un desempleo, tuvieron la oportunidad de ayudar a sus hijos, pero lamentablemente los niños hispanos, sus papás no tuvieron esta oportunidad de quedarse en casa y se quedaron trabajando más del usual.
So what she's saying is, as a consequence to being at home, some of the businesses shut down. It wasn't just schools, right? So a lot of services and agencies and businesses were shut down, and we were at home. And some families could get unemployment. But unfortunately, especially in the Hispanic group, they were the essential workers. We all ate. There was a lot of sanitization to take care of, and stereotypically, those are the labor force that is represented largely by our families of color, especially our Hispanic families. So for those children, they were often home alone. And not only were they working and were they essential workers, they worked overtime. They worked a lot of hours. And so there was many days where those children didn't have their parents around.
Ahora que regresaron estos niños a la escuela, nos hemos dado cuenta que están teniendo doble reto, que es aprender el idioma y es ponerse al nivel que los otros niños o regularizarse académicamente.
So now they're doubly challenged. Of course, they're English learners, or we call them emerging bilinguals. And so they're learning the language, right? And also they're having to stay up or keep up with the instruction. And we know that there has been instructional time lost. And for these children who did not have the support at home, of course the instruction was available online, but we know it wasn't like it is in person. And so this is what she's sharing, is that they missed out on that opportunity.
ahorita creo que estamos ocupando un poquito más apoyo para la educación bilingüe para poder ayudar a estos estudiantes.
So she's here requesting more support for bilingual instruction so that we can help these children.
Gracias por su atención.
Thank you for your attention. And I'll just complete in summary. One of the greatest concerns is that we have options in our district. There was some lively discussion in the group. We have options for independent study. We have options for online learning in this district. We have a lot of wonderful programs. We're open. We have Saturday school that we support our students with. And so one of the discussions in the group was really around being present for our children and supporting those children. Of course, we had to be in quarantine and distance learning, but we do recognize the inequities that some families face outside of our own control. And so with that, muchas gracias, señora Pimentel. Thank you. Thank you.
No, thank you. And gracias para todo que estás haciendo por la gente aquí, en plan de niños ahí. Mucho gusto. Gracias. Okay. Moving on to agenda consent. Do we have a motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
First by Mr. Clark, second by Mr. Hoover. Roll call, please.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Mr. Reed? Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Gao?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item 10, public hearing. It's going to be a public hearing notice. It's a new Pacific Charter School, Rancho Cordova petition. Superintendent?
Yes, this evening we have on the agenda a public hearing based upon a petition that we received from New Pacific Charter School. Per Ed Code, within 60 days after receiving the petition, we are to hold a public hearing. So just to review the timeline, we received the petition from Dr. Kiefer, who's the lead petitioner, on September 3rd. And from that point in time to fast forward to about this week, we've been seeking feedback from our FCUSD staff and community and parents. And tonight will be the first public hearing by the lead petitioner with a presentation and a chance to ask questions. And then at the November 18th meeting, board meeting, will be the second public hearing and staff's recommendation for board deliberation. So at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Paul Kiefer, the lead petitioner, who has a presentation for the board this evening.
Yes. Do we have a... Oh, awesome. Thanks for stuff.
And once he's finished, then we'll open the public hearing.
Oh, just in. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Collegian, and staff for allowing us to present New Pacific School, Rancho Cordova tonight. Tonight, my colleague Ramel Babanta and I will present Pacific Charter Institute, the need for New Pacific School, how New Pacific School meets the needs of the scholars in Rancho Cordova, the community impact of New Pacific School, and finally, how we will make New Pacific School a success. My name is Dr. Paul Kiefer, and I am the founding executive director of Pacific Charter Institute. We founded PCI in 2004 and began serving students in 2005. Prior to entering the field of education, I worked 7 years at United Parcel Service in operations, business development, and project management. After earning my Bachelor of Science degree from UC Davis, I went on to earn my MBA, my teaching credential, my administrative credential, and my doctorate. I am active in the community, including recently elected as a board member for the Rotary Club of Sacramento. I'm a member of the Greater Arden, Carmichael, and most recently the Rancho Cordova Chambers of Commerce. I volunteer as a district chairperson for Three Rivers District of the Golden Empire Council of the Boy Scouts of America. I also support scouting as an assistant scoutmaster with Troop 380, focusing on high adventure and merit badges. I also attend St. John the Evangelist Church in Carmichael, and I teach the confirmation class. And I also participate in the homeless initiative, which I'm sure you're aware of, which is called Carmichael Heart. And I know that in Rancho Cordova, we have the Rancho Cordova Heart. Since 2018, I have served on the Sacramento County Board of Education as a trustee for Area 3, which covers portions of Carmichael, North Highlands, Antelope, Arden Arcade, College Greens, and Sacramento. My wife Elizabeth and I have a daughter at El Camino Fundamental High School. We have 2 sons at the University of San Diego. My son, my father, and I are 3 generations of Eagle Scouts. Pacific Charter Institute is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation serving over 3,000 students in Northern California. The 4 schools under PCI are authorized by 4 different school districts. PCI supports 6 resource centers located in Lodi, Oak Park in Sacramento, Rio Linda, West Sacramento, Elk Grove, and Vacaville. We have over 200 employees and currently serve students through independent study and homeschooling. We take student, staff, and family satisfaction seriously, so we survey them regularly. One survey questioned by our wellness team last year found that 90% of our students felt their teachers cared about them. Over the last 15 years, we successfully launched a number of programs, including Project Lead the Way, medical assisting, EKG technician, dual or concurrent enrollment in 14 counties, and deep community partnerships. Over the last 15 years, we have maintained an exceptional business operation and currently have a reserve of over $9 million. Over the last 15 years, we have stayed ahead of the curve for information technology, ensuring our students and staff have state-of-the-art tools. Over the last 15 years, we graduated students who have continued amazing pursuits. Saul Gonzalez completed our medical assisting program in 2009, and here he is as a surgical technician on the UCD team that separated the conjoined infants last year. Saul is on the far left. We graduated students to West Point, the University of California, CSU, and colleges across the United States. We graduated students who became professional and collegiate stars in sports. We graduated students who were trapped in generational welfare, who went on to college to break the cycle of welfare. PCI moves kids academically, socially, and professionally. Over the last 2 years, we have become acutely aware of the mental health and disconnectedness that our students are experiencing across California and acutely in Sacramento County. The data on the slides clearly makes this an imperative both to stave off learning loss and improve the dire condition of so many of our students. According to the CDC, almost 20% of children in grades 2 through 8 have a diagnosed disorder. Over 30% of our students, high school students, experience persistent sadness and hopelessness. And 1 in 6 youth have made a suicide plan. The PCI team, including our board of directors and staff, decided we needed to be on the front line with these families with a site-based program. A site-based program, New Pacific School. The New Pacific School mission ensures the learning community fosters a sense of connection and belonging to empower the scholar leaders of tomorrow. The New Pacific School vision for our graduates is that they become lifelong, purpose-driven learners who author their own futures and thrive in a rapidly changing world. New Pacific School will be free, inclusive, safe, and small. New Pacific School will be the TK-12 public charter school that is tuition-free and open to all students. We will have absolutely no academic or behavioral admission requirements. We will open with grades TK through 5 with 90 students, and we'll add grades until we reach the 12th grade. We'll add a grade until we reach the 12th grade. By year 3, we expect 202 students. New Pacific School is a personalized learning program that is student-driven, anchored by Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, or CASEL, approved social emotional learning and project-based systems at its core. A different approach and a different environment classroom with learning stations and guided learning experiences, not merely desks in a row. Scholars take ownership of their learning and are treated as whole people. We rolled up our collective sleeves and put the very best that we do at PCI and added the most innovative and student-centered programs to create New Pacific School. We know what we could do in an independent study and homeschooling arena, and we also know how much better we can be at a site-based program in Rancho Cordova. Scholar-centered. We will use individualized growth plans for every student that is data-driven and mastery-based. Connectedness. We will establish a culture of support, empowerment, and collaboration by using social emotional learning as a foundation, including Leader in Me by Franklin Covey and the PCI academic triangle of the parent, the teacher, and the student. Every single NPS employee or New Pacific School employee and student will be trained to use these tools. Project-based. We will match rigorous interdisciplinary projects with authentic learning experiences to meet the demands of college and career readiness, including the implementation of grades TK-12 Project Lead the Way. Inclusive, we welcome all students and honor all experiences and abilities, including students with special needs and English learners, supporting all students with multi-tiered systems of support. And adaptive and innovative teaching. Our expert teachers will use evidence-based pedagogy strategies when implementing the Common Core state standards and the next generation standards. Thank you for that. And now I would like to introduce Romel Mabanta, our founding principal, who with our team has been fantastic connecting with the Rancho Cordova community over the last 4 months. Romel will be discussing community impact and making New Pacific School a success.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kiefer. Thank you, Dr. Collegian and Board of Trustees for having us here this evening. My name is Romel Mabanta. I'm the founding principal of New Pacific School here in Rancho Cordova. I bring 18 years of school experience and 7 years here at Pacific Charter Institute, 3 years here as a site administrator. I taught at Rancho Cordova campus with the Folsom Lake College, which brought me here to PCI. What I offer is an innovative and visionary sense of leadership that has garnered the attention and the connection of the President's Committee on Arts and Humanities. I offer an unshakable work ethic that had me mopping the floors of Woodbine Elementary's after-school program every evening for a year. I taught John Steinbeck to students in the fields of Lodi, while my students picked asparagus and grapes. I offer a keen worldview that comes from teaching humanities and college admissions in Seoul, South Korea, from a Shakespeare teaching fellowship in London, and from leading a global international baccalaureate program housed at Harvard and MIT. It is that experience and the experience of countless talented educators that allows us to serve the needs of our learners, of our scholars. I offer Isabel, a 5th grade student with a neuro exceptionality who receives the support and services of our special education department. They're in her corner, monitoring her progress and rooting and cheering her on every step of the way. I have Brant, a 3rd grade emerging bilingual student who receives embedded English language development in everything he touches, in addition to face-to-face intervention. And we have Mindy, a 2nd grade student, gifted. She'll expand and extend her projects into the community for authenticity and relevance, to match her rigor and to make sure that we keep her engaged. This approach has allowed us to receive an outpour of support from the community. We kicked off our community outreach efforts July 4th at the Rancho Cordova Parade. We hold weekly Zoom meetings for prospective founding families. We've held events at local shopping centers, at Walmart, community businesses like Wacky Tacky. We greeted every single family. We've attended local Cordova Council luncheons. We've reached out to preschools, including our local Head Start Center. We've launched our Coffee with the Principal effort, which allows us to meet families in a sea of soccer players at local parks. And we've even stepped foot and engaged dozens of apartment complexes, including Rockingham Apartment, Cold Crossing, Grayson, La Loma, Zinfandel Ranch, Cobblestone Creek, and many more. In just a few weeks, we amassed over 180% of the required signatures for our petition. Our focus was simple. We wanted to focus on regions that maybe have struggled with chronic absenteeism, with room to grow in the realm of academics. that guided our choice and our ability to find a proposed site that has public transportation easily accessible to our families. We have a site easily walkable for neighboring subdivisions and accessible by bicycle. It is that accessibility that continues our site culture. As Dr. Kiefer mentioned, every single staff member, from the instructional side to facilities to the front office, will be immersed in our dual frameworks of social emotional learning, whether it's Leader in Me or the Right Brain Institute, which is a neurobiology evidence-based approach to restorative practices. And that's just the site. Pacific Charter Institute has enlisted a cadre of professionals to offer an infrastructure from student services, from facilities and operations, and a robust budget fiscal services team to provide a high-quality program on day one. A vote for New Pacific School is readiness. It's also a vote for partnership. We want to continue the great work of Folsom Cordova Unified, and we look forward to collaboration and partnership in the days to come. Thank you again for having us, and we look forward to your future questions.
We'll bring that to, back to the board for board questions, and then we'll go to the public hearing.
Mr. President.
So, Ms. Clark, and then anybody else wants?
Yeah, I've got a slew of questions, and hopefully you all can answer them for me. First question I may have is the obvious question: independent or dependent?
This will be an independent charter school, as we have our own nonprofit board, and we will be under the oversight of Folsom Cordova Unified School District.
How does that work? How does that work that the board will have oversight? I mean, because with independent oversight, for some reason that doesn't figure.
Yeah, so Folsom Cordova, upon approving the school, would be charged with enforcing what we've laid out in the charter to make sure that we're meeting the goals that we've established. And then it's also the board's purview, if they feel that we're not meeting that goal, that they would deny us on renewal. So that's how it's independent, and it's.
So would that be done annually?
Every 5 years.
Okay.
Now, if the school is high performing, it would be every 7 years, which we would expect it to be in that realm.
Okay. I was just actually looking at some other questions, and I think they were probably brought up from our staff, and I think from other leadership positions here at the
Mr.
district.
Clark?
Yes.
We have presenters who are going to talk a little more in depth. Well, we have public comment that will talk more in depth to what I've already spoken of.
Okay.
It's possible that could answer the questions that you might have. Is that reasonable? Or I easily will.
I always have a lot of questions, but
no.
I welcome.
I do want to
welcome it.
interject here. This
Yeah.
is the time we have the board ask questions. We don't want to go out of that protocol, and then we go
Yeah,
into
we'll turn it
hearing.
over to public comment. That's
And
fine.
then we bring it back. We have to do the questions.
problem.
now. Okay.
All right.
So go ahead.
So the question for me, and I read through it, and it was union membership, and would they be a part of a union?
So per California law, and any employee and employees of an organization can organize and become part of a union. But upon opening, it is everyone will be an at-will worker, an at-will employee.
So they have the opportunity to form their own union.
Certainly, every business in California has that opportunity.
Right, and I totally get that. So we would just have to do a wait and see to find out what union they organize with, or
If they choose to,
okay, that's fine.
yes.
All right. And the other question I have, and I'm just kind of curious, you have a charter in Oak Park, and I think I know exactly where it is. I think it's around the corner from my office. Are there any other school districts that you're in? Because I think that you're in Sac City, right? Is that Sac City?
So that is a resource center authorized from Lodi Unified School District. And so that particular resource center is associated with Lodi Unified.
Oh,
And it's under that district's authorization and supervision.
oh, interesting. Okay, so are there any other neighboring districts where you are at?
Yes.
Which
So
one?
we're authorized in Twin Rivers Unified School District for Heritage Peak. And that particular charter school has resource centers in Rio Linda, West Sacramento, and Vacaville.
Okay, Twin Rivers, what's the student population of that district?
I'm going to throw a number of 40,000, 45,000.
All right,
Lodi is, I think, 20,000, roughly.
okay, all right. Another question, you had mentioned sports. And so what sports programs would you be offering? Is it a competitive middle school, high school sports? How would that work? What would it look like?
So certainly, that's this school's whole concept is student driven.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so based on the capacity of students that are interested in a particular sport or sports will dictate our ability to build out those programs. So for instance, if in fact there's a large cadre of students that would like to be in the CIF type sporting events, it would first determine how many athletes want to be in those sports and what sports would accommodate the number of athletes that want to be in that. So for instance, if 4 students want to be part of track and field, we could most likely field the track and field team because it doesn't require so many players.
You're right.
That we could do that. So it's really the sports that would accommodate the number of students because this is a small school. So to have the density of students that would be, A, agree on the same sport, and then B, it's something they want to do. That actually might be a wraparound back to Folsom Cordova to ask, we have a student that's very interested in volleyball. Is it a possibility that student be able to play volleyball since it is a Folsom Cordova student?
Right, right.
And we've done that for 15 years within Pacific Charter Institute, where districts say, have the student come on over and we'll make sure that student can play.
Okay, I'm not sure, and maybe Mr. Maroon can probably answer that question. I don't know, could that happen? To have a student come from like a charter to, let's say, volleyball?
Not unless the school district oversees that, so unless specifically the school district is a dependent charter.
Right. Well, that's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, the CIF has strict guidelines on multi-school agreements.
Right.
And if the school district's overseeing that particular school and has, they're following the same guidelines as far as graduation and as far as calendars go and so forth, then that would be allowed under a multi-school agreement.
Okay.
But we'd have to look and see how Pacific would set up and what their calendar would look like, how the governing board works for them to get acceptance into CIF and then to be allowed to be a multi-school agreement. So there are some bugs we'd have to work out. We generally have not done that because our students, the administration of our schools do not have any access to those students, their information, whatever else that has to happen. There'd have to be a cross mixing of IT information. I don't know if we can do that with them.
Okay, thank you. I read something in there about your recruitment process and how you're recruiting teachers and staff. I'm just curious, are you recruiting within the community? Are you having any interest from community members that are willing to be on staff or be a teacher?
We would have huge interest in that. And so we would love to have our teachers look like our students, and we would love to have our staff look like our students. And however we can pull that off, we've already started developing affinity groups at Sacramento State and other organizations to try to increase our diversity, our equity, and our inclusion. So.
Okay. All right, thank you. And one last question, your community outreach. You said that you're meeting with parents, obviously in Rosemont and in a few pocket areas in Rancho Cordova. I would assume that they are parents of FCUSD students already, correct?
I was actually out front at Walmart meeting people in the heat of summer about 2 months ago. And I met one family in which the family had 2 students in FCUSD, and they had 1 student that they were driving all the way to Westlake Charter School in Natomas. And so when they said, well, we're really interested in putting a school here, so that's how much, that showed me demand within the community that was looking for something that we have to offer.
I see. Okay. I do have some comments, but I will defer the rest to my
Any board
colleagues.
questions? Other board questions? Hearing none. Okay.
President Short.
Okay, Mr. Wade.
Sorry, just a couple questions. One would be, just maybe educating me on what's the process from here? I know we have a timeline, but is it possible that somebody could walk through that?
After the public hearing tonight, we have a list of questions we've been sending to Dr. Kiefer based on the checklist of criteria that the charter petition needs to meet, and he has been responding. We'll compile that into a report that then we'll submit to the board for consideration and deliberation by the November 18th board meeting. At that time, we do a second public hearing, and then staff gives their report and their recommendation, and then the board deliberates and votes to either support or to deny the charter. After that point, maybe Dr. Kiefer can talk about the paths. If it's approved, then we move forward working with the charter. If it's denied, they have the opportunity to appeal
Yes.
to the County Office of Education, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Clegan, sorry, you mentioned that first report is submitted to the board. Is that open to the public as well, or just the board?
Yes, that'll
Yes.
be in open session.
Okay. And would that report, then that would be available prior to the session whenever the meeting minutes are published, is that correct?
Yes, yes. It'll be uploaded with the agenda item, so it'll be prior to the board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Reed.
Thank you. Dr. Kiefer, your proposal suggests that you're going to start with 90 students, pre-K through 5th. So I just took 90 divided by 7 grade levels. That's about 12 students, a little over 12 students a class. Is that how small you're going to be starting?
Actually, our class sizes are going to be, we're pulling from the strategy of having a multi-grade level. So K1, TK1, TK 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the classes would have each about 30 students with a paraprofessional full-time and a teacher. That model, certainly we've seen it work throughout Sacramento County with the California Montessori Project, which is their model of staffing. So actually it would be one expert teacher, one expert paraprofessional per 15 students. So the class will have considerably more touches with the adults.
And it indicates that your goal would be to expand a grade each year, so eventually it would be a pre-K through 12th grade model. Would you be envisioning that same class structure all the way through 12th grade?
Yes. We know that there's going to be a requirement for a more direct instruction in certain points, so the classrooms will change a little bit in order to ensure the teacher has enough time to deliver, but the students will still be empowered to do that work, and the ability to use the curriculum that we've designed and the materials we use to ensure that we're able to know where they are and then where we need to get them. So, yes.
Would you ever envision growing larger than that per grade level or combined grade levels?
Yeah, so maybe I misled a little bit. It's TK5 first year, and then 6-8 second year, and then 9th grade the third year. And so the purpose for that is to ensure we have the single subject experts in that 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And then the 9th grade, we would add that 4th, the history or social studies teacher, to ensure that we're maximizing the A through G. But those teachers would have had that time to really sink their teeth into our model, into how we deliver instruction, and how we really are the guides on the side, helping the students be successful. So then year 4 would be the 10th grade.
Right.
Year 5, this, the 11th, and so it would roll that way to get to the full complement of students.
Let's fast forward, let's say 10 years, and the school is going strong and well. How many students would you anticipate that you would have at all grade levels, or combined?
Yeah, I anticipate between 300 and 400 students at 300 to 400 students full tilt, TK-12. And obviously, that would be something that, the board would be well aware of it prior to getting to that point, because the board has other choices to make. Perhaps rather than expanding that one, create a second one that would then take that pressure off if there's that kind of demand.
Would you ever envision growing larger than 300 to 400 students?
I don't envision that.
Okay. Would you take students from out of district?
They would be eligible to attend, but our priorities with the lottery, it puts priority on the direct community that we're going to be establishing. So the students in Folsom Cordova have number one priority, or they have the higher priority over any student coming out of district. So the goal for us is to make sure that we've completely saturated Rancho Cordova to ensure that we've got every student possibly that's interested. 90 students, year 1, all Folsom Cordova students.
And why specifically Rancho Cordova? What was so attractive that you wanted to focus on Rancho?
Sure, sorry. As my colleague, Mr. Babanta mentioned, we were targeting absenteeism, which is an indicator of student connectedness. And I think that's been pretty well laid out. We also were looking at data points that led us to believe that we can help Rancho Cordova have much higher student achievement, and also be a laboratory for Rancho Cordova schools over time on how we're doing the work we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I have for now.
No? Okay. Do you?
Oh, sure. I might have some more after public comment, but just to clear up some things, because obviously, our district currently doesn't have any independent charter schools. And so I think this is an area where, this board is somewhat new to this issue, but I just want to clear some things up. So Dr. Kiefer, if you could help me here. We obviously all care about accountability. I think your board, I'm sure, would feel the same. You want to see your schools succeed as well. And so you mentioned the process of authorization. So this board is not only responsible for reauthorizing a school if it were to begin, but just on the charter process for independent charters, does your school require voluntary enrollment in order to ultimately succeed and grow?
Without students, we don't have a school.
Exactly.
So, so if, and it's a school of choice, so we're hoping it's the right choice for 90 students year 1, which, according to our signatures, we have well more than that for interest.
So attendance, though, is going to be up to the community, correct?
Completely.
Yeah. And my other question, I was hoping you could kind of explain the lottery process a little more. I think there's some misconceptions about charter schools picking and choosing what students get to go to their schools. Per state law, obviously, there is a lottery. So could you kind of explain for the board a little bit more how that lottery works?
It'll be a blunt explanation. I have our assistant director of student services. He's here and he knows that system clearly, but bluntly, all the students are put into the queue of Power School. Power School, then you put in the criteria, and every student has a criteria, which is, are they children of employees? So they have a criteria. Are they children within Folsom Cordova, et cetera, all the way down. And so it'll first spin through all those to make sure, did we get the teacher with one child? Yes, we got that. Number 2 would be Folsom Cordova. I'm not giving it to you exactly, but I believe we lay it out in the petition. If Folsom Cordova is number 2, it will go through the whole thing and make sure it grabs all Folsom Cordova students as part of the lottery. So if there's 100 students Folsom Cordova, we're done doing the lottery. Now it's going to randomly draw the 90 names. All 100 will be notified, 90 that you're in, the 10 that you're on a waiting list now.
Thank you. That's helpful. And then I guess my last question, I'll save the rest for after public comment because I know that there's some more information coming. How many families you may have said or on your petition or have expressed interest in the program so far?
So beyond the petition, well, I'll talk to the petition first. Our requirement is to have half the number of students interested in the total enrollment. So at 90 as our first year, that'd be 45 students. We exceeded that. We hit almost 90, I believe, just off the petitioning process. As Ms. Rabonta mentioned, we've been doing the coffees, the Zooms. And so we continue to get interest in the school. And so it's well over 90 now. I would say it's venturing well into 150, 200 who have shown a real interest in their child going here this next year, or they have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old.
Got it. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to clear up, Mr. Hoover, is every year we're required to present to you how's it going against our metrics. So I didn't want you to think that, and if we're not doing the job, there's ways for cure if we're not meeting what we're saying we're doing. And so we definitely are under the district. And certainly every year, for instance, at Twin Rivers, we provide them with a report. They provide us with a report. They examine us and see how we're doing against our charter petition. So.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And I also love the idea of, being a laboratory for other schools as well to kind of show best practices and things like that. So thank you so much. I'll save the rest for after.
Okay.
Mr. President, I have one more question. Paul, if Mr. Kiefer, if you can break down that, how that works again. K through 5 would be the first year?
Yes, or TK5.
TK5, okay. And then the second year is 6 through? 8. Okay. Third year?
Is the freshman class.
Okay.
And it adds up, I know the total, 202. That's
okay.
Our total.
So the fourth year would be 10th grade?
Yes.
And after that would be your 11th and 12th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay. I have a couple questions. You mentioned that it was free. Can you explain to the board, how does the ADA money work?
So in California, under Governor Brown, they created the funding system, which was already being used in charter schools, which is each child is worth a certain value. And through that system, it allowed for students to have a value, and then what school they chose to go to, that same value would follow that student to some degree. And so from a cost to a parent, there is no charge for a student to go to this school. The data shows that if a family had a chance to put a child in a private school in the United States, 42% of parents would put their child in a private school if they could afford it. That only leads me to believe that there is people like choice, whether they use it or not, they have choice. So it's free.
Well, does the ADA come from the Folsom Cordova district?
ADA comes from the state of California.
State of California. But if it's a student in FDA, it will lose the ADA, is that correct?
Well, we get paid in arrears, so going into the next
shifting
year.
the ADA over to you.
Certainly.
Okay. I just want to make that clear for
Yep.
everyone to understand. It impacts our budget. The other one is
There is an impact
Sure,
statement
but,
in the charter petition.
facilities. How do the facilities work? Where are you going to locate the facility in Rancho Cordova? And what type of facility is it? And does it meet the Field Act? Where, as school districts, we're under the constraint to have buildings that are safe during earthquake or wind, or that are safe for children to be in. What kind of building are you going to put these kids in?
We're going to put the children in a safe building that's approved by the zoning and building codes of Rancho Cordova.
Does it meet the Field Act?
Charter schools have a little different. I'm not positive how that specific piece works, but certainly I can answer that question, not tonight, but I get you that
If the Field Act, these buildings here, if an earthquake hits, they're all lights on, everything is, people are safe. The buildings that you do in there that are approved by the local building permits, they're not. They fall apart. The lights go out, things fall apart and it puts kids at risk. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, so
Okay.
charter schools have to follow E-rating, so that is a higher level of rating. So where the school is placed, it's meeting E-rating, which has been approved by the state of California and the state architect's office as an appropriate methodology to house kids in a daily school.
That's not correct.
Well,
Okay. Anyway, that's what I do for a living. So anyway, I'm moving on to the next one. What is the cap? You were talking about cap earlier. We were talking about growth, and you said your vision is less than 400. Is there a law on the cap of ADA? Can you grow to like a full-size high school, full everything? Is that possible?
sure, that's possible.
Okay.
I never said cap, by the way. I
Okay.
said, what was my vision of growth?
So there's no
That was the
cap?
question I was asked.
Okay. Is there, on the boundary areas, it goes beyond Folsom Cordova School District, and you can attract from other areas, correct?
That is correct.
So my question is, you have a resource office in Lodi over Sac City. Why didn't you choose near Sac City?
So over 15 years of operation, we have found certain areas that require to have a resource center to give more intensive instruction to students. Oak Park, I think, if you know the area, it's very helpful to have a place that's actually safe for students to go to from their own homes. And so we offer that resource center. And the reason why it's authorized by Lodi is because we had to move resource centers after a court case said that you had to have, a court case firmed up that you weren't allowed to have a resource center outside of your district but inside your county. And so any resources that were outside of our district but inside the county, we were able to move to another charter school under the PCI umbrella.
But still the question is there a reason that you wouldn't go to the Sac City?
Because it's a
School
resource center and we weren't petitioning them for a charter school because under the law, we're allowed to have that resource center there.
Is it because Sac City is having budget problems?
Has nothing, we've been there for over 10 years. So whether they have a budget problem or not, that wasn't our,
Okay.
our inclination was actually to serve students in Oak Park.
Okay, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Very good.
All right, moving on to the,
And Mr. Short, I wanted
Yeah.
to clarify one of the responses to Mr. Huey's question on the time frame of our staff report being available at the time that we post the public hearing. And in the case of the November 18th meeting, we post the public hearing notice 2 weeks prior. So staff's report will be available at that time. So I said the Friday before, it's actually 2 weeks before.
okay. With that said, we're going to be opening up the public hearing as of right now. The public hearing is in effect, and we have quite a bit of speakers here. Adults will be 2 minutes, students 3 minutes. Start with Tim Rabota, please. And then after that, it'll be Kristen Connor. Please line up as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good evening, board members of Folsom Cordova Unified School District, Superintendent Collegian. My name is Tim Rabota. I'm the Director of Student Services for Pacific Charter Institute. I'm honored to be speaking to you tonight on behalf of our team and community. This is my 17th year in education. I've held positions as an 8th grade physical science teacher, a school psychologist, as well as a school administrator. Currently, I oversee our dynamic academic team, which covers academic supports, student services, and special education for Pacific Charter Institute. Part of our responsibilities for the academic team is to coach, monitor, and support staff and families with knowing where their students' achievement levels are throughout the year. We regularly benchmark students, we progress monitor all students, and when they're not meeting grade level criteria, we implement, coach, and support with strategies from supplemental supports to intensive interventions. We begin focusing on students' core academic areas when they enter kindergarten and continue to the 12th grade, including students with disabilities and English language learners. We accomplish this across our 4 schools with 11 academic programs for all K-12 learners. We use a number of assessments, including DIBELS for early literacy and NWA MAP to precisely measure where our kids are at during the school year. Our team utilizes this data to lead initiatives that improve student outcomes. For example, right now, one of Pacific Charter Institute's strategic priorities is focused on increasing literacy achievement. There is additional information regarding the results of this in the new Pacific School Charter petition. But long story short, thanks to the efforts of our educators on the ground and our families, we've seen significant gains across Pacific Charter Institute towards increase in the number of 3rd graders who are on target to meet and exceed state standards. We're making a difference for the kids. We expect to make an even bigger impact with New Pacific School, as it's a site-based program and will have an increased access to our student scholars.
Thank you. Kristen? After that is Molly.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Connor, and I'm a school psychologist with Pacific Charter Institute. I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology from Westmont College and my master's degree in PPS credential in school psychology from Cal State Long Beach. I grew up in Northern California, so wanted to return here to start my career. I worked in Fairfield Sassoon Unified for 6 years before joining PCI in 2017, gaining experience working with students in grades from TK all the way up through post-secondary, and in programs ranging from special day classes to the advanced placement program. As a school psychologist with PCI, I provide mental health services to students within both general and special education, and consult with parents to provide them with strategies for supporting their children's mental health needs within the home. I also conduct psychological educational evaluations to help determine student needs and eligibility for special education services. At PCI, we're committed to meeting all students' individual needs, including those with special needs. We're able to provide programs that are student-centered and build on student strengths while being well-positioned to both identify and address challenges. This includes various levels of interventions and supports, including student study team meetings, 504 accommodation plans, and IEPs. We serve students with a wide range of abilities and have a highly experienced special education team, including program specialists, education specialists, school psychologists, and speech pathologists. We also have access to other types of professionals, such as occupational therapists, assistive technology specialists, to help meet those student needs as appropriate. Finally, we view our parents as our greatest asset and seek to include them in all aspects of their child's educational progress. I also happen to live in Rancho Cordova, and as a member of this great community, I truly hope PCI is given the opportunity to bring New Pacific School here. Thank you.
Molly? Right, thank you. And after Molly is Ruby.
Good evening. I am Molly Gunn, and I have been in education for over 10 years. This is my third year with Pacific Charter Institute. I have a bachelor's degree in English literature, my multiple subject teaching credential, along with an authorization to teach English. I have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. I am also one of the teachers that signed on for this charter. In my years of teaching experience, I have worked with many different students. I have taught in a first grade classroom full of English learners in a Slavic community in North Highlands. I have also worked with at-risk youth in an academic recovery program here in Rancho Cordova. Many of these students were pregnant and or parenting, involved in gangs, foster youth, and all were academically behind. The thing that I have seen that students need the most is for their social and emotional needs to be met. Many students have experienced adverse childhood events, and all children carry this with them into the classroom. When students have experienced these events in their lives, it makes it difficult for them to process and manage complex emotions and social situations that come up in school. It can be a barrier to achieving their full academic potential. These students need an environment where they are respected and recognized for who they are. They need a place that cares for them and that fosters caring between students and staff, students and students, and students to families. When kids feel safe and connected to a positive community, their potential for learning is limitless. I am excited about the New Pacific School because it will empower students to control their learning experiences. Through the Leader in Me approach, students will be taught how to set goals, work with people who are different from them, solve problems constructively, and overcome obstacles to get things done. Had I had this foundation in my previous school settings, I would have been able to achieve so much more with my students. The New Pacific School encourages scholars to take ownership of their education and to interact in a positive ways. This is a school that truly cares about all stakeholders and is poised to take on the challenges that students face today. I ask you to please support the New Pacific School in Rancho Cordova.
Thank you. Ruby? And after Ruby is Christine.
Hello, my name is Ruby Diaz, and I am the science specialist for Pacific Charter Institute and one of the founding staff members of Pacific Charter. as a graduate of UC Davis in chemical engineering, I worked in the semiconductor technology and environmental consulting. My first career provided life experiences and knowledge of the job skills needed in STEM field. PCI has consistently supported science A through G, quality instruction, and Project Lead the Way STEM with funding for professional development, training, staffing, and materials. Project-based learning through Project Lead the Way is not just preparing students for careers in STEM, it is also developing critical thinking skills and providing hands-on approach to learning that captivates students. For example, I mentored a student, Abraham, an emerging English bilingual student, severely behind in his high school credits, but he began to dream of life as an engineer. He is now a lead robotics engineer for Amazon. Project Lead the Way and STEM-based learning also levels the playing field for all learners. Cameron, a high-achieving academic student, and William, an academically struggling but skilled problem solver, collaborated together on a team to compete in a design solar-powered boat for the SMUD regatta competition. Promise was not excited about coding at first, but she stuck it out, and by the end of the year, she was able to display data in a way that was relevant to her as a Black student. I have witnessed many transformative and power. I have witnessed the transformative power of engaging hands-on and STEM collaborative work with my students. And that's why I'm really excited to support the New Pacific School, and I hope you will too.
Thank you. Christine? And after Christine is Heidi.
Hello and good evening. My name is Christine Spratling, and I'm the School Counseling Program Specialist and Families and Transitions Program Coordinator for Pacific Charter Institute. In addition to supporting the school counselors across Pacific Charter Institute, I also coordinate and support our most vulnerable students, including homeless, foster youth, students at Promise, or in need of extra support, and our teen parents. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous. I came to PCI 7 years ago from Shriners Children's Hospital, where I worked in recreational therapy and child life, while obtaining my master's degree and credential in school counseling. My passion is working with our youth, and in particular, those who are dealing with challenges or in crisis. As a school counselor, I work with all students to assist them with developing academic goals, creating individual plans and goals, supporting their social and emotional needs, and helping to identify and manage the challenges that students face each day. In the past few years, PCI has expanded our support system by creating a wellness team that is composed of school psychologists, school nurse, and school counselors. Our wellness team works together to provide wraparound services and support for our students. This vital support system will continue to grow with New Pacific Schools. In addition to having school counselors at all of our school sites, we also have an online wellness referral system that is available to all staff, students, and parents 24/7. Within the first few days of launching that, we had multiple submissions by parents and students. Our wellness team has worked with our students who came to us while living in cars, locker rooms at local gyms, and shelters to ensure their safety and their basic needs are met. We work with families to get them connected to medical, mental health, vision, dental, and any housing that they may need. Our goal is to remove barriers so that they can focus on their learning. We've trained our staff in mental health first aid and are continually offering professional development. As a Folsom parent, I ask you to please support New Pacific Schools Rancho Cordova. Thank you for your time.
Heidi? And after Heidi is Yolanda.
Hi, my name is Heidi Wilson, and I've been a teacher for nearly 10 years. I've been a teacher with PCI for the last 4 years in their homeschool program. And I have a bachelor's degree in child development from CSUS and my multiple subject credential and master's degree in education from UC Davis. I currently serve 28 students, and I also teach 5th grade science to about 20 additional students. And each one of my students have different needs and have found that alternative education environments work best for them. Being in an innovative program like this is something I'm both passionate and excited about. I love what I get to do every day. I focus on supporting students' individual needs and promoting authentic learning experiences because I have seen students learn more deeply and become more invested in their learning when these elements are considered. I used personalized learning plans and project-based learning with my current students. That's why I'm excited about New Pacific School. The school is centered on individual scholar needs and project-based learning. Getting to know my students and their families is one of the best parts of my job. My students are whole people with full spectrum of emotions, life challenges, and experiences, and teaching with this information in mind creates an opportunity for more meaningful learning. New Pacific School is putting social emotional learning at the foundation of their program and prioritizing seeing students in this holistic way, which is a key element of effective education. Ultimately, creating an individualized and safe environment for learning is my objective as a teacher. Ensuring that each student feels safe and individually supported is my strategy to help students learn meaningfully. Neurological research has shown us that students learn most deeply when the levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, are lowered. Creating a safe, connected learning environment like this is what New Pacific will do. I believe that New Pacific School evidence-based strategies, including project-based learning, individualized learning plans, and a whole child approach will have a positive impact on kids in Rancho Cordova. Please vote for New Pacific School. Thank you.
Yolanda? And after Yolanda is Mike.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Collegian and esteemed members of the board for allowing us to speak before you this evening. My name is Yolanda Villegas, and I have been in education for 27 years. I began as an English learner myself in an early exit program, bilingual program, and I am the first in my family to attend college or university and come from a long line of farm workers stemming from the Bracero program in the 1960s. While I attended UC Davis, I became a bilingual paraprofessional and then transitioned to become an elementary school teacher, primarily in South Sacramento, prior to becoming a secondary school administrator for underserved youth for 13 years. I'm now honored to be Assistant Director of Academic Services at Pacific Charter Institute, where I am truly enjoying the sense of belonging to an innovative and caring team. New Pacific School's equity vision, coupled with the guidance of the Department of Education's Division for Emerging Bilinguals, positions us to support emerging bilinguals with the ultimate goal of attaining high levels of English proficiency as quickly as possible to fully and meaningfully access and participate in grade level standards. But most importantly, both address critical components that go beyond academics, such as creating an inclusive, welcoming, and safe environment that honors each scholar's uniqueness while embracing differences. The mindset that we have, along with our school-wide focus on social emotional learning, will assist us in eliminating many of the systemic educational inequalities often confronted by English learners. We currently serve over 300 English learners and have a 21% reclassification rate PCI-wide. In addition to identifying English learners by using the home language survey, monitoring their progress, we also use supports and interventions led by teachers in small groups or one-on-one as needed. Please support New Pacific School, Rancho Cordova. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike? After Mike is Dan.
Hello and good evening. My name is Michael McLean. I'm the Director of Information Technology for PCI. I've been with the organization for 17 years. I've been working in IT and education for over 25 years. My goals are to use technology as a tool to achieve academic success. Pacific Charter Institute uses PowerSchool as its primary school information system. Since the inception of our partnership, I have given demonstrations to its leadership team and hosted webinars with other school districts describing our model. Next month, I will be a guest panelist at the California IT and Education Conference with the Chief Executive Officer of PowerSchool. We employ a suite of tools within the PowerSchool family of products that support scholars, teachers, and parents with various aspects of student-centered learning. Through these tools, everyone can see exactly where a scholar is and what's next on the path towards mastery. We believe that by offering a well-supported toolkit to our teachers, we provide the technical flexibility and academic integrity needed to achieve optimal outcomes in a context that works best for the student's learning. It is not enough to simply purchase the technological tools mentioned previously and then walk away. On all devices, we implement multiple layers of security using Panda Adaptive Defense, Microsoft Defender, Sophos Network Security, and Bark for Schools. This ensures a robust, secure, and safe learning environment for our students and staff. We have a team of experienced technology support professionals dedicated to providing support and service. New Pacific School scholars will access these tools to technology. We provide mobile hotspots and devices to scholars and offer access to IT technical staff support for troubleshooting systems issues. Thank you for your consideration. Please approve New Pacific School, Rancho Cordova.
Okay, thank you. Dan? And then after Dan is Dave? Or Dave, are you Dave?
I'm Dan.
Dan, then Dave.
Dan and Dave were the Olympians back in '88.
Okay, that's right.
Remember that?
Are these something?
Good evening, Folsom Cordova board members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening on behalf of New Pacific Schools. My name is Dan McLaughlin. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Services at Pacific Charter Institute. I've had the privilege of working at PCI for the past 16 years. I was there when we had our first parent-student orientation night in 2005, when only one family showed up. Since then, I'm proud to have played some role in seeing almost 3,000 graduates complete their high school education with us, including some that started with us as kindergartners and completed their associate's degrees while in high school. At PCI, my current role includes ensuring that our enrollment process is accessible, fair, thorough, and an overall good experience for potential new families. This includes making sure there are no barriers to having a chance at enrollment. As long as there is space, admissions to our schools is open regardless of needs, background, academic strengths, or gaps, etc. In the case we have more interest in space, a public random lottery would be held and students would either be offered a spot at New Pacific Schools or placed on a wait list. All students are truly welcome at PCI schools as they would be at New Pacific School, Rancho Cordova. In addition to enrollment, I also help with our CTE programs at the high school level. I would like to highlight one of our certificate programs that I think encompasses skills that our model at New Pacific Schools will teach students starting at an early age. Our professional communications certification validates the knowledge and skills necessary to communicate effectively, think critically, and work with others, resulting in an employee with greater interpersonal and customer service skills. You've heard about the various supports that our students have in our schools, but I also want to highlight that the staff working in the background to put it all together is a team of dedicated professionals who have a sense of caring for one another, both in and out of the office. New Pacific School, although a small school on the outside, has a tremendous amount of support coming from within that is dedicated to its success. Thank you again for your time and consideration, and please approve New Pacific School, Rancho Cordova. Thank you.
Dave? And after that will be Chris.
Good evening. My name is David Becker. I'm a CPA and a partner with a regional firm here in Sacramento. I have over 35 years of experience auditing and consulting for school districts, charter schools, nonprofits, and government agencies. I've worked with over 150 school districts and charter schools in that time in Sacramento County, Placer, Nevada, Humboldt, Fresno, Yolo, Napa, Sonoma, and many more counties throughout California, Central California, and Northern California. This includes large districts like Sac City, San Juan, Elk Grove, and Twin Rivers school districts. It includes small districts and charter schools with as few as 60 students. I've been involved with CASBO on various committees throughout the years and participated in that. School finances have evolved tremendously over the 35 years I've been involved with it, which includes the introduction of charter schools about 15 to 20 years ago. I've been working with Pacific Charter Institute for 15 years. They started out as a single charter, Heritage Peak Charter School, and just a few hundred students. They have added 3 additional charters in 2010, 2014, and 2015. And over the last 10 years alone, their financial position has grown from about $900,000 to over $9 million. And they now serve over 3,100 students. They have always had clean audit opinions, good systems, and sound internal controls. Their mission is to empower students to take charge of their education, and management has done this in a fiscally responsible manner that any other district or charter school would be proud to emulate. Education has always been the goal, and sound fiscal management has helped them achieve this goal. In closing, I would ask that you please support New Pacific Charter School, Rancho Cordova. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris? After Chris is Candace?
Hi, good evening. I'm here to speak in support of New Pacific Charter School. I've had the pleasure of knowing Dr. Kiefer and members of his leadership team for several years. And I can simply attest to witnessing so much of what you've heard tonight from him and his leadership team and others who work there. Their personalized approach to learning is something that's not found very often, but is tremendously welcome and necessary to families who need it. And that's why after 8 years of my daughter attending schools here in Folsom, Cordova, and we needed a change. And I reached out to Dr. Kiefer and his team, and it was the best choice I could have made. She gets the same personalized attention everybody here has talked about. She's a different kid now that she has the opportunity to have that kind of personalized learning opportunity. I think it's something that is a choice and an option that I think any family in Folsom, Cordova who needs it should have access to it. Public education, the guarantee of public education in the California Constitution, I think simply means that you put the needs of kids first. And if there are kids in Rancho Cordova and in Folsom, Cordova who need it, I think New Pacific Charter School would be an excellent addition to your portfolio. Thanks.
Candace? And after Candace is Amira.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Candace Kruger. I have been a classified employee in the district for 5 years and have a student in the district for about 4. And I am strongly opposed to the proposed charter school. The cuts to staff, programs, and services that our students, especially in Rancho Cordova schools, would experience is unacceptable. As a community, we need to keep our schools strong for all our students and not undermine them with a new charter school from an operator with an unimpressive track record. With its high-quality, committed staff, Folsom Cordova is more committed and better equipped to serve these students. I urge the board to deny this petition in order to protect our staff and prevent cuts to services for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Amira? After Amira is Rob.
Good evening, Dr. Klee and esteemed board. I am a grandparent, parent, and a longtime employee of this school district. I feel that our district does as great a job as any charter school can do. I have heard things here tonight that make me shiver. As a 30-year employee, I have yet to hear one of their parents speak. I am a parent, a grandparent, and I am here to speak for both my children and my grandchildren. Please do not allow this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, and then after Rob is Dominic?
Good evening, school board members. As CSEA Chapter 528 President, I ask that the board deny the charter petition from PCI. PCI has great goals, but Pacific has no track record of operating classroom-based schools. So there are so many questions and concerns regarding how they would actually serve the students in that type of an environment. On the other hand, FCUSD has staff in place and is actually accomplishing all of these goals. Our dedicated staff is more qualified and better equipped to serve all of our students, including our higher needs students. FCUSD's funding would be reduced, which would harm some of our highest needs students through cuts in programs and services. Our district provides diverse opportunities for students through our variety of programs, including Riverview STEM Academy, our new Innovations Online Academy, our own charter school, and numerous other programs. For these reasons, CSEA urges that the board deny this petition in order to protect our staff and prevent cuts to services to our students. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, it was Dominic. Dominic, sorry.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Collegian. My name is Dominic Walco. I'm a labor relations representative with the California School Employees Association. I'm here to talk against this proposed charter school. While the charter has not placed a cap on the enrollment in the school, they do say that they anticipate up to 400. We think it could be 500 students. Where is that ADA money that the district loses? How is that going to be made up? It's going to be made up by cuts to services for our students and layoffs of our staff who have proved themselves essential and valuable over the last 2 years. And beyond that, I'm just speaking about COVID. One thing that is concerning that Rob mentioned is this organization has operated 4 non-classroom based charter schools with results across the board as it relates to student performance for students with disabilities, English second language learners, that are worse than here in Folsom, Cordova. So I'm curious why, when they have not demonstrated an ability to achieve people or to get good student achievement in a non-classroom based environment, why are we going to allow them to now try in what they call as their laboratory to figure that out in a classroom based setting? I'm a little concerned that that wasn't mentioned tonight. Also, what has not been mentioned is that AB 1505, which placed a 5-year moratorium on non-classroom based charters effective in 2020, coincides with them trying to branch out into classroom based charter schools. I find that lack of disclosure, along with some other elements of this petition, very concerning and things that should have been answered in the numerous public comments which were given by their paid staff, but no students and no parents in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. And after this, we're going to go to virtual Zoom speakers.
My name is Jeannie Harrington. I work in operations and I've been with the district for 10 years. And I strongly come here just to ask to not allow this charter school to come to Folsom Cordova district. We've obviously done well in our school district. By allowing this, we'll be cutting a lot of programs, especially to the Folsom Cordova area. And yes, I agree with a comment that we don't have any parents here and they don't have the best record. So I strongly again ask you to deny this petition.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go on to our Zoom virtual speakers. How many hands do we have raised?
Currently, we have 5, Mr. Short.
Okay, please bring one each time. We'll provide the same amount of time.
Yeah, I think she's going to turn in Ms. Miklos.
Okay, we'll have one more here on site and then we'll go to Zoom. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Sorry for the confusion on that. I thought I was on the agenda for that. Okay, so FCEA has some serious concerns about the proposed new Pacific Charter School, and we do not support the petition. Our concerns include the impacts of the proposed school and the track record of the operator of this charter school, Pacific Charter Institute. PCI has 4 existing schools and all are non-classroom based, as Mr. Gualco had mentioned. PCI has no experience operating a fully classroom-based program. PCI schools enroll English learners at numbers that are significantly lower than the districts and counties in which they are located. None of PCI schools have even 10% EL students, and 3 of the 4 have less than 5% EL students. White students are overrepresented, and their performance at PCI is far below the academic performance of white students within FCUSD. Their academic track record indicates that they would not serve the interests of the entire community, nor would they provide a positive academic addition to the district. In fact, in 2019, FCUSD performed better than all 4 of the PCI schools in ELA assessments for both white and EL students. In math, FCUSD performed better than all 4 of the PCI schools for white students, EL, and students with disabilities. And for socioeconomically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities, only 1 of the 4 PCI sites performed better than we did. Approval of this charter will have a negative fiscal and community impact on FCUSD, especially for our Rancho Cordova community, where there are higher rates of socioeconomically disadvantaged students, EL learners, students with disabilities, foster and homeless youth, and than in the rest of the district. A new TK through 12 school of this size will result in significant reduction in enrollment for FCUSD. The impact of budget cuts will necessitate the loss of programs, services, and/or staff that our students and families rely on. I hope you will agree with these issues and deny the petition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go on to our Zooms. We had 5 raised hands, is that correct?
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Yes, Mr. Short. And just to confirm, Mr. Reed will be setting the timer?
Yes, he's ready to go.
Okay.
As soon as you say yes, they start speaking, he'll start the clock.
Okay, thank you. Our first speaker is Debbie.
Okay, Debbie?
Good evening, Board and Dr. Collegian. This is Debbie Krikorian with FCEA. As a former master teacher for Project Lead the Way, our district has had 6 master teachers who have trained many teachers in the hands-on program, including some PSI teachers. Our district has been in areas a leader and has brought in many districts and teachers from around the area into our classrooms to show them Project Lead the Way and to demonstrate the powers that it brings to students. We serve the needs of project-based learning through our classrooms, 2 career programs, along with the baccalaureate programs, focusing on language and the arts. Our entire district focuses on meeting social emotional needs of students in the classroom. PCEI does not have a track record of running in-person class learning. Why would we set up our students to go to a school without a classroom educational program whose schools do not meet the needs of low-income students, English language learners, students with disabilities, and homeless and foster youth at the same rate as the local districts which the schools preside? As a teacher in the district for 22 years with 30 years of educational experience, I am opposed to the addition of this new charter school to our district. Their track record with under-enrolling and underserving high-need students makes them unlikely to be successful in carrying out their proposed program. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Debbie. Next,
Next, we have Xavier.
Xavier. Xavier there?
Hi, yes, good morning. Good evening, sorry. My name is Vanessa Lopez, and I am from the Mather community. I have a 13-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. I heard about New Pacific School through a flyer in the mail and became really excited about it once I selected to learn more and received a call from the founding principal, Romel, just last Friday, so I'm a brand new supporter. See, my 3-year-old is very spirited and strong-willed, as you can call it. 6 months ago, we put him in a Montessori preschool. It's very intimate, less than 15 kids, and in the short 6 months, he has thrived emotionally and academically. The values of New Pacific are more similar to a Montessori approach than a traditional school, with the connectedness, education, collaboration, and project-based social emotional learning. And for that, I am fully in support of a school like New Pacific. As I mentioned, I'm from Mather, and right now I drive my 13-year-old to East Sac to attend Kit Carson International Academy, which we had to apply through a lottery system to get him in, but it's only 7 through 12. I know sports was mentioned earlier, so I did want to point out that Kit Carson High School students, since it is a smaller school, you do get to try out for sports at their high school residence, which is Johnson or Rosemont. Hearing about New Pacific would mean great things for the future of my younger children. My son would be one of the first students to attend their transitional kindergarten class, with hopes of graduating from New Pacific one day, with his little sister to follow. So today I ask for you to support and approve the New Pacific School petition so my children and the children in the neighborhoods around me can feel safe in an inclusive environment that New Pacific promises to offer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, who do we have?
Next we have Loona, but I believe she's an interpreter and I'm not sure Hi, Loona. Do you know the screen name of the parent you're interpreting for?
Yes, I will, if I could have a chance to speak as well, please?
Oh, okay.
Is this
Go ahead,
adult
please.
or student?
No, this is an adult. She's also interpreting for another parent.
Yes.
Yeah, with interpreter will add a little time.
Okay,
Right, but she's speaking on behalf of herself
Right,
right now,
we'll
Mr.
have
Ed
3
and Mr.
minutes.
Short, and then he'll.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you. Good evening, board members. My name is Loana Sparron, and I work in the Communications and Outreach Department of Pacific Charter Institute. In my 8 years with the organization, I have witnessed PCI's efforts in addressing the need for clear and constant communication between our school, our students, and our EL families. As a result, we have seen increased family engagement and student success. We have found that by translating teacher communications and having access to a culturally aware interpreter, EL families take on a bigger role in supporting their student and can be confident in the knowledge that they as parents are also being heard and understood. As an organization, we ensure that all student communications are available in the family's preferred language by providing Spanish and Russian translation and interpretation services as needed. This includes all steps in the process from initial contact and outreach, registration assistance, and in-person or digital communications between our staff and the families we serve. We have language-specific telephone lines and email contacts where EL families can reach us with questions or concerns. As part of the Pacific Charter Institute family of schools, New Pacific School will follow the same model to address the needs of EL families in Rancho Cordova and ensure that family participation and engagement encourages each scholar's development and growth. Being part of the New Pacific School planning team, I have personally participated in outreach and informational Zoom meetings, which is how I connected with Sarai. And she was really excited about the school, and she's really interested in the New Pacific School program. I would like to introduce Sarai now. She will be sharing a little bit about her family and her support for New Pacific School. I will be serving as her interpreter. Sarai's screen name is Juan's iPhone, Rochelle.
Okay, just so you know, there's no audio connected to that. I'm gonna try to unmute. There's no way I can unmute them.
Okay.
They're only connected through their video.
Okay,
Mr. Short, how would you like to handle that?
I have her on the phone. Do you want to try my speaker?
Your audio's already on, but we won't be able, I don't know if we'll be able to hear Sarai.
Can we try? Sarai, do you want to go ahead? Sarai, ¿puedes empezar ahora?
Ok, claro. ¿Ya me escuchan ahí?
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Sí, sí te escuchan.
Ah, claro. Hola, mi nombre es Sarai Banda.
My name is Sarai Banda.
Tengo dos hijas, una de 6 y otra de 7 años.
I have 2 girls. One is 6 and the other one is 7 years old.
Me siento afortunada de formar parte de este movimiento.
I feel very fortunate to be able to participate in this petition.
A favor de la posibilidad de una escuela.
In favor of the possibility of having a school.
Donde se preocupan por la parte socioemocional de los niños.
Where they are concerned about social emotional aspects of children.
Ya que en esta etapa me parece de suma importancia para su desarrollo.
I think it's extremely important for their development.
Donde pueden ayudarlos a que piensen y aprendan de manera diferente.
Where they can teach them how to think and learn in a different way.
A hablar sobre sus desafíos.
To speak about their challenges.
Y a desarrollar la autoestima en ellos.
And to develop self-love.
Para que el día de mañana sepan manejar los retos cotidianos.
So that tomorrow they will be able to address challenges.
De una mejor manera.
In a better way.
Establecer relaciones personales positivas.
Establish positive personal relationships.
Tomar decisiones informadas.
Make informed decisions.
Y prosperar en la escuela y en la vida.
And prosper in life and in school.
Todo esto me interesa para mis hijas.
I want this for my children.
Ya que las personas no nacemos sabiendo controlar nuestras emociones.
because we are not born knowing how to control our emotions.
Por favor, voten sí para New Pacific School.
Please vote yes for New Pacific School.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other raised hands?
Yes, Mr. Short, the last hand is Natalia.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Good evening. My name is Natalia, and I have lived in Rancho Cordova since 1998. I'm currently in the center of our neighborhood. I have 2 children, and I'd like to speak about the schools in Rancho Cordova. I believe we need an alternative to what we have here, the traditional school system. There are children like my older daughter who simply need an alternative teaching method that offers higher flexibility, more freedom in teaching, and smaller class sizes to better focus on individual student needs. And I strongly believe that New Pacific School can fulfill that and those needs. The traditional school environment is not for everyone. My children will thrive if put in a classroom learning environment like the one New Pacific School offers. I believe we need this charter school in our area. We need more choices. Please vote yes for New Pacific Schools, and I appreciate your time and consideration.
Okay, that's our final speaker.
Mr. Short, I'm
Yes.
sorry, there's another hand that was raised while the last speaker.
Okay, go ahead.
Katie? Katie, can you unmute yourself, please?
Sounds like technical difficulties.
Yeah, I,
Okay,
yes, sorry.
few more seconds.
Katie, one more time, can you try unmuting yourself? It's not working, Mr. Short.
Okay, well then, we'll move on. That's our last part of the hearing. As you heard earlier, how many meetings we're going to have the second hearing coming up and when?
November 18th.
November 18th, that's when the board can do more comments and deliberation, and the whole presentation happens then. The hearing ends as of right now. Hearing is over, and we'll move on to our next item 11, discussion action, item A.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Are we able to make comments or?
Not on the first round, second time.
Oh. So.
There is no comments, just questions.
Can we ask questions? I mean, yeah,
That was at the beginning.
Oh, I thought we were coming back to it.
No, that's not a normal, that's an action item. This is a hearing. Normally, it's,
but we can't discuss in a public hearing? I mean, is that not?
No, it's just a
We're not
hearing.
taking action, we're just discussion.
There was
Because we're
no-
not going to have a discussion opportunity prior to the 18th, correct?
That's correct. It's just a discussion. I mean, it's just a hearing. The first hearing, that's it. That's the protocol that we've been using for years. That's just the way it is. That's,
But I mean, I'm just trying to clarify, I don't know if the superintendent can clarify, is discussion not allowed?
Well, I think
Or-
the time for the questions were taken
at the beginning, and I
Oh,
said that clearly.
Is there no time for comments?
Yeah, I guess.
No, there is no comments after a hearing.
I guess I think at least 3 of the board members, I guess, was not aware of that.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it.
4 of the board members were not aware of that, or I would have probably asked.
We have counsel on that because I don't want to break protocol that we've always done it this way for years, so. It's the second hearing is where you're going to have a full discussion action item.
Well, I guess the difference here being that we don't have normally we have a discussion item prior to having a discussion action item. Whereas this is a public hearing. And so I guess I thought that it would be treated the same as a traditional discussion item.
Never done that.
No, I'm saying,
You read the item number, you ask superintendent, you do board question, you go do the hearing, and that's it.
sure,
There-
go ahead.
That's it.
There is a second hearing before the
Right.
discussion action on the 18th.
You'll have it then, yeah.
So it is different in the fact that there are 2 public hearings.
Right, that's how
Yeah,
it works.
But I think if there are follow-up questions, that the board can submit them to me, and I'll submit them to the lead petitioner, because we still are sending questions as well, so.
Let's do that.
I will give my comments in my report then. Thank you.
I will follow too.
Likewise.
All right,
Okay, moving on to item A, approve revision of board policy BP 5131.8, mobile communication device superintendent.
Yes, this item is coming back from our last board meeting, looking at our policy on mobile communication devices. We had a pretty robust conversation at the last meeting, and we also had feedback from our student advisory board member, and she had also conducted a survey with all of our middle schools and high schools students to get their feedback. We are recommending a change to the policy based on the discussion we had, but I'd like to turn my time over to Ms. Gao so she can share some of the highlights of the student survey feedback. Ms. Gao.
Yeah, so we recently sent out a survey to the secondary schools in FCUSD. We got 767 responses, and it was just an overview of student cell phone use during school and how they felt that impacted student well-being generally. So for the question regarding cell phone use during school, the vast majority of students surveyed, about 81%, used it for family commitments, 62% for schoolwork, and only 15% did not use it for any of the activities, which included after-school activities, transportation, and work communication. As far as frequency with how they use it, the majority, about 56%, used their cell phones 5 or more times a week during school, and 13% never used it. And then the rest fall somewhere in between, pretty much evenly distributed. About 80% of the students surveyed found cell phones important for daily use. And then with regard to the conversation we had last meeting about AirPods or earbuds, about 60% found those important for use during school. And when surveyed about effective solutions to teaching students to be more responsible with cell phones on campus, the most popular answer was education on the harmful effects of cell phone overuse. Second most and that along with restorative opportunities for learning and repairing damage done, equaled roughly 60%. The next most popular answers were disciplinary action depending on the nature and severity of the event, as well as individual confiscation. And only about 7% of the students surveyed favored a ban on cell phone use during the day until agreed upon time with site administration. And then when asked about how cell phone use on campus impacts student well-being, on a scale from 1 to 5, the average was about a 3.4, and then the average answer for high school students was slightly higher at 3.6. And the students had a opportunity to provide feedback on how we can better solutions to teaching students, again, to be more responsible with cell phone use on campus. And one of the common responses there was education similar to a subject in health class, or just teaching students more about the dangers of cell phone use and overuse.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Gao. Appreciate it, and thank you for sharing that feedback with us. I think that was very enlightening, and I appreciate the time that you took and the students to compile that information. So with that, and with the additional verbiage that we added on page 1 of 4 of the policy, maybe we can pull up the policy, Ms. Stagnow, which gives our site administrators the flexibility to use discipline as needed and impose a temporary ban if needed, but to handle it based on the specific concern and case by case, and to update the superintendent when that happens. And our principals would also be sharing updates with the parents and students in their student handbook. It's not there in the policy, but that's another place they would be adding the communication piece. So with that, we would recommend that revision to the policy unless the board wants to revise that at all.
Okay. Do you have board questions?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Yes, go ahead.
Just looking at the first paragraph, where it says students in grade TK through 5 may not use cell phones, smartphones, smartwatches, or other mobile communication devices while on campus. Devices must be turned off and placed out of sight during the school day. Students who need to call parents may use, and I'm assuming, and I need clarification, the school office phones, correct?
Phones located in the administrative office would be,
Okay,
yes.
so what's the point of that student even having a phone with them? And here's another question I want to put out there. You know, we're in the era of the caller ID and everything, and if a student, maybe the student, if they need to call their parent, can go into the office and use their phone so the parent knows it's from them and not the school. So, you know, I don't know. Well, for me, I feel comfort when even though my daughter's 28, she calls me and it says Christina Clark. I'm good with that. I mean, I don't want to call it late night and it's from a number I don't recognize, but I mean, it's a totally different thing. But I'm just wondering, why do these students need to have their phones with them? I mean, if they can't use them.
And I'm not sure how many students at the elementary level we do have with cell phones, but Dr. Huber, do you want to share some feedback on that?
I'll just borrow one.
So correct in terms of the fact that they're not using them on campus, but especially in like a third grader or fourth grader, fifth grader, you might have students walking home who, on the route home or whatever, might need to contact mom or dad. And so, having the cell phone in their backpack would allow them obviously to do that when they're off property.
Yeah, and I just need clarification.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Any other board questions? Yes, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am comfortable with the language that the staff has developed here. It just provides some flexibility, and it does emphasize on a temporary basis. I mean, certainly we are not looking at banning cell phones at the secondary level. And realistically, the goal is that the principal will never need to use a temporary ban, but it just creates the flexibility in some unforeseen circumstance that it might be needed for a very short period of time. So I'm comfortable with the language that's here. I actually very much appreciated Alice's feedback from the students. What was interesting is the highest percentage of suggestions was education. Did I understand that correctly? Yeah. I almost wonder if that opens an opportunity for perhaps our health staff, sorry, Carrie, to partner with our IT staff to develop a video that we could, ask that all students watch prior to the start of each school year. That just would educate them on what the dangers are, the addictive behavior, what the studies are showing on the developmental brain, just so that the students are aware of that. Because I'm not sure how else. Well, I guess we could have a student assembly, but I guess we could also do it in health class. But health class is not at every single grade level. So I would think that developing some type of communication, some type of video that we ask that any student that brings to school a phone, watches before the first day of school or something like that. I mean, it's just one idea. I'm sure there's many others. But anyway, it just made me think a little bit on how we could provide that education that the students had suggested that they'd like to receive. But as for this language, I'm very comfortable with the language as it's written.
Thank you. Any other board?
No, okay.
Alice. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Just for further clarification, I guess, does anyone have like an example of what a specific concern would be when that would be appropriate for principals to ban phones temporarily? Is there like historically or anything.
I think probably what brought this on to discuss this again, you know, the TikTok challenge, if there was a, 2-day ban, maybe that may have provided something, or at least given the principals the leeway. I think that's why we started the discussion. So that's what comes to my mind.
Rare. A rare event.
Yeah, very rare.
It's
Yeah.
rare. It'd be rare, but it could happen.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no more board questions, take it out to the public. Do we have anybody in the audience who want to speak on this? Please come to the podium, state your name, please. And then after the vote, we'll go to Zoom.
My name's Ernestine Stoddard, and I am a Rancho Cordovian. And my daughter was going to school. She's older now, but she was going to school. And there are times that she did need the phone in order to contact me because of being harassed by another student, or a conflict with a teacher, or I don't feel comfortable giving somebody the right to ban an item that possibly they could use in case they're of an emergency. That's pretty much why I gave her the phone, because of emergency, because of what has happened in our country so many times that I think the phones have been helpful whenever there was a shooting, unfortunately, or something else happening. And since we don't really have the protection on the premises, I feel that they feel more secure by having a phone, so they can reach out to their parents and let them, or the police, and let them know what's going on as soon as possible. So I don't feel comfortable giving the governing board the opportunity to ban phones. I just don't feel comfortable with that.
Thank you. Any other public comments here in the room? If not, do we have any raised hands?
No, Mr. Short.
Oh, we don't. Oh, okay, great. With no more public comment, we bring it back for final board comments and direction. That's a discussion, actually.
I'll make a brief comment, Mr. President.
Yes.
So I know this is a specific, area of concern for Alice, but I do think, I think you mentioned that this would be rare. I also think it's a good provision to have in there for instances where there may have been warnings given, maybe multiple times, to a particular student, and it continues to be disregarded. I think, there are instances where there does need to be some sort of greater consequence. And so hopefully the warnings will work and we'll, be able to resolve before any ban was put in place. But for the few students that continue to choose not to follow the policy, I think, this is a good tool in the toolbox for our administrators. So I'll be supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Any other final board comments and direction? No. Any? Yes, go ahead.
So I appreciate the fact that, in all likelihood, this won't happen often, if at all. But, obviously I'm just thinking in the case that it does, I don't think I would be comfortable with the school being able to just institute that school-wide ban on mobile devices, regardless of individual misuse. So that's just my comment.
Okay. Any other final board comments? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Reed first. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Hoover has a second. So take roll call, please.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Gao?
No.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Student vote, no.
Thank you for that, though. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, moving on to item 11B, approve the renewal for non-public school master contracts for the 2021-22 school year. Superintendent?
Yes, this item comes to the board annually. It's a renewal of the non-public agency master contracts that we oversee as our own SELPA. The services and the amount per service and the duration and frequency of the services are all listed there. And this year, the projected cost is $15,000 for the 21-22 school year. and the fiscal impact to non-public agencies due to staff shortages will be over $653,000. So with that, we would recommend approval.
Okay.
Excuse me, Sarah, I believe you were, item B is non-public schools. I believe you were reading.
Oh, I was on C.
Non-public
Oh, I'm
agencies,
sorry.
item C.
So Ms. Wessinger, would you like to clarify on the, I was one item ahead since they're both very similar. Thank you for clarifying
Okay.
and correcting.
I've done that
All right.
before.
Yep, I was ahead of
Oh, I
myself.
probably don't have my cover sheet handy. My apologies.
I could read what the actual fiscal impact is on that
Yes,
one.
if you can do that, please, because mine
Yes.
is not handy with
So
me.
these are
My
for the
apologies.
individual service agreements. The fiscal impact for students attending non-public schools is projected to be a cost of $2.7 million for the 21-22 school year, which is budgeted from general fund.
Mhm. Thank you.
Okay, any board questions? Any? Yes, Mr. Reed.
So, obviously, this is a fairly sizable sum of money. Can you, I guess, discuss or educate the board as to why some of these types of services cannot be done in-house by the district? Why do we have to contract out for these?
Yes, so a non-public school is part of the continuum of services. And obviously, a non-public school is a very restrictive placement because it is a school that operates on its own campus. And so there are no opportunities for access to or to typical peers or for mainstreaming. So we really only want to exhaust the continuum of services and exhaust everything, all of the supports that we can provide the student before we would make a decision to move a student to a non-public school. So the majority of the time when you're looking at a student who is at a non-public school, it is a student who has assaultive behaviors and is assaulting students and staff.
Oh, okay. So that's the vast majority of what we're, okay, all right.
On occasion, there are non-public school placements related to student settlement agreements. So we've had a due process case, and that has been the settlement. And then you'll also notice on this particular one that we do have some residential placements. And our residential placements are usually students, it may or may not be assaultive behaviors. Sometimes it's students who have very, very significant mental health needs, have attempted suicide, other needs.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Yeah. Any other board questions? Okay, any public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No, Mr. Short.
Okay, bring it back for board final comments and direction.
I'm sorry, Betty Jo, since I have you up there, can I ask one question?
Okay.
In my comments. There have been some news reports of some of these non-public schools coming under investigation and things like that, I believe. Are those things that you kind of track and try to avoid for our students, or I'm just curious on kind of the accountability mechanisms there?
Absolutely. And you may be aware that after the incident that occurred at Guiding Hand several years ago, there was actually a change in the law. And so we're required, I was already monitoring, so I make visits to all of the schools where we have students placed at least once a year. And then, of course, our program specialists are out there for IEP meetings and visits as well. But it's a requirement, so I'm required by law to monitor and make visits to each of the sites each year. And then I submit those visits to CDE.
Great, thanks for that.
And then also just added on to that is prior to making a placement, we actually have to visit the site. So you may see I all of a sudden I had to fly to Utah over the summer because we were making a placement in Utah.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay, any final comments by the board? Any? Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, I'll move.
I'll second.
Mr. Burr, second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Gao?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to discussion action item C, approve the renewal for non-public agency master contracts for the 2021-22 school year. Superintendent?
Well, I'm going to defer to Ms. Wessinger.
Okay, so
This is the non-public agency master contracts.
So we've broken it out by fiscal impact. So fiscal impact for students receiving services from non-public agencies is projected to be a cost of $15,577. And then for non-public agencies to provide services due to staff shortages is projected to be $653,440. And then the fiscal impact for non-public agencies to provide special ed related services is $216,450 for a total cost of $1,554,484.
Okay. Any board questions for staff? Yes.
Yeah,
Mr. Hui.
thank you, Ms. Wessinger. You mentioned at least part of this is for staff shortages. Can you just provide some input on what types of shortages we're looking at?
Yes, thank you. And you asked some questions, and so I have most of those numbers still in my head. But in special education, we experience staffing shortages on a yearly basis, most significantly speech-language pathologists. So I think 9 years in my tenure in the district, I think there's maybe been 1 year that we haven't had to contract for with a non-public agency for speech-language pathologists. So this year we're contracting with almost four speech-language pathologists. So that's why you see such a high cost, and that would be for the staff support. In addition to that, occasionally we have to contract for staff support services. So for example, we're contracting for OT because we have an OT out on leave. And we don't necessarily want to hire somebody for a full year, and OT is probably after speech language pathologists, OT, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and are the hardest to fill, and then mod severe teachers. And we actually opened the school year this year with mod severe teacher positions still open, as well as special ed preschool. So we have not contracted with agencies for teachers, but we frequently contract with agencies for related service providers, as in this case. And then there's a few smaller chunks of money that, for example, the $15,000 for specific students, that's actually represents 3 students. And out of 2 of the students are related to settlement agreements, and 1 of the students is actually, it's makeup services that were not provided during COVID. And then I think lastly, there's another chunk there, and that chunk of 216,000, those are services that we either don't have the capacity to provide, we don't have the positions. So for example, we have a lot of specialized teachers like deaf, hard of hearing, vision impaired, et cetera. But there's some services that we need that we don't even actually have existing job descriptions for. And so CART services is one of them, and I listed that in the question. So, and sign language interpreters, we often have to contract with, and we don't need them every year. So they're not people that we hire because we have students that move in and out of the district. And then also some of our deaf, hard of hearing services are regionalized and they're provided by Sac City. So our students go there. But CART services, for example, that's everybody's familiar with sign language, but CART services is where a student actually gets their classwork interpreted for them in live time on a computer screen. And so it's a very different kind of service from sign language, because sign language is American Sign Language, and it's a different language than what it would be translated in CART services in a classroom. And so it's a very specialized service that we have to contract for because we can't provide it.
I appreciate that. One last question would be, I'm assuming the issue with the speech and language pathologists that we have difficulty hiring, is that true for districts throughout our area?
Throughout the state, yes. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Any other board questions? Any public comment? Anybody on Zoom?
No, Mr. Short.
Bring it back to board. Any final comments, or do I have a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second.
First by Mr. Hoover, second by Mr. Hui. Roll call, please.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Aye.
Mr. Hoover?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Hui?
Aye.
Ms. Gow?
Aye.
Motion carries by vote.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12, discussion only. A, expanded care program update. Superintendent?
Yes, this evening, we're bringing back information to the board that was requested at the end of a prior board meeting to give us an update of all of our expanded learning opportunities that are before, during, or after school. And earlier at the beginning of the year, we also had board support to hire our new coordinator of expanded learning opportunities, Ms. Marie Pollock. And she's here this evening to share some of the highlights of the different programs that fit under this umbrella and to answer any board questions. So Ms. Pollock, would you like to come to the podium and just give an overview of the different programs and where we're at with staffing and facilities?
Oh, okay. Okay, I don't know if you had any questions. It was a discussion item. We submitted the rationale, and I have a copy. I don't know, Dr. Clegan, you want me to review what we submitted, or?
Well, maybe just highlight the different programs that are under expanded learning opportunity. And I think as board hears a little bit about the status of them, they may have some questions.
Okay, so the expanded learning opportunities, it's a big picture umbrella in the state of California. In Folsom, Cordova, we call our expanded learning for first and second grade expanded learning. Our ACES program is expanded learning, student care, Saturday school, and summer school. So those are the 5 programs that we consider expanded learning, and they're opportunities basically to provide supplemental learning for students. California has different definitions. They have a expanded learning opportunities. You've heard a lot of money going into expanded learning in the recent past. There's an expanded learning grant that Folsom Cordova has, and that was the COVID relief and reopening grant. And then coming up, we have an expanded learning program entitlement. And so we want to expand our current expanded learning offerings. And that really has to do with offering a 9-hour school day, similar to our ACES program. So that's what we really want to do. And yeah. Any questions about anything
Any board
you read?
questions?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Hey, Ms. Clark.
Yeah, Murray, I have a question about the criteria for expanding learning. What's the criteria for a student to get in?
And which component of expanded learning?
Let's say ACES.
ACES?
Yeah.
ACES is offered at our Title I schools, the elementary and middle schools. So we do have waiting lists in ACES. I currently have 15 expanded learning assistants posted to increase our staffing in our ACES programs. So priority goes to homeless and foster care youth. And
I take it that that's not a fee-based, or it is fee-based?
ACES is not a fee-based.
Okay.
Our fee-based programs are student care.
Okay, student care.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know at one time you all had Sac State students coming in and helping out with the ACES program. Is that still happening, or?
Not right now, since COVID.
Right.
We have different restrictions and our volunteers are very limited.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, any other?
A couple questions.
Yes, go ahead. Mr. Hoover.
Thanks so much and for being here tonight. I think one of the reasons I think I brought this forward was, I think a number of us on the board regularly hear from families about student care specifically. Obviously, all these other programs are have their own limitations as well based on our budget and staffing and things like that. But I think for student care, there's a it's a very, very long wait list in many cases, to the point where it's almost impractical. In fact, I got a call 2 weeks ago, I think it was like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, from Russell Ranch telling me that my son is now eligible. And I think I put him on the list like 3 years ago and we're no longer at that school. So, I think that, I get the frustration there, because I think for a lot of families, especially working families that have the means to pay for student care, or even the ones that need to use the means testing, discounts and things for student care, the wait list really makes it kind of pointless, I guess, for them, because they're basically forced to go into the community and find other options anyway. And so I guess my first question for you is, what do you see as the biggest barriers to that program, like expanding that program or kind of reducing those wait times and kind of making more space for kids?
Currently, there's 7 schools with wait lists out of the student care schools.
Okay.
And the wait lists we've worked to reduce the wait list, but it is definitely staffing and facilities. There are positions open on EdJoin right now for student care as well as ACEs. And next would be facilities. We'd need to venture, in order to expand the programs, we need to venture into the classrooms, which don't necessarily meet our needs in a daycare environment.
Right.
So we need additional facilities in order to expand the student care offerings.
Okay, so I guess the follow-up question to that then would be, I mean, obviously staffing is an issue kind of across the board right now, and I'm not sure that gets solved overnight. But I do think, I'm hoping that's a temporary problem, but who knows? But I guess the follow-up question would be, what is the district doing, or can we put together a plan for, targeting, needed facilities or needed some sort of program to reduce those wait lists at those 7 sites? Can we, and even if it's a long-term plan, it might not happen. Like, I don't think anyone has expectations this gets solved overnight, but if there's some sort of plan that we can put forward to say, this is the actions we're going to take over the next few years to reduce that backlog. I was just curious if that's something that's feasible, if that's something we can look into.
Absolutely. Mr. Martin, Ms. Cabrera, and I are meeting next Friday,
Awesome.
actually, to talk exactly about that's on our agenda.
Wonderful.
So we are going to look at what we can do to expand our programs, as well as use what our facility options are.
That's excellent. So thank you for that. And please keep the board up to date on that. I think, we talk a lot about, obviously enrollment is always an issue for our district, and we want more enrollment. And I think solving that backlog is going to also help enrollment, because a lot of the families I've talked to said, well, we can't use student care, so we're just going to go to a different school or a different place and so I think that would also help that aspect too. So really appreciate your attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board? Yes, Mr. Reed.
Yes, thank you. All right, so you indicated that the 2 largest barriers on student care is, one is facility and the second is staff. So I see listed here Carl Sundal, Folsom Hills, Mangini Ranch, Oak Chan, Riverview, Russell Ranch, and Theater Judah. So do all, well, I know the answer on Mangini Ranch, but for the rest of them, do they have any empty classrooms right now at those facilities? Or is it a situation that we need to bring in portables or is it staff? Because, obviously in the case of Mangini Ranch Elementary, there are clearly empty classrooms there. So I assume that that's an issue of staffing, that we don't have enough staff to support extended student care at that facility. But as for the other facilities, is it a facility issue, meaning that you don't have an empty classroom at that school site, or is it also a staff issue?
Well, and I think that it's a complicated answer, because most of the classrooms are not available and don't meet our needs. We'd have to
take out furniture. We have done it at Sandra J. They have done that because they had an extra classroom, like in your example. Mangini is working on their extra room, but until they get everyone moved upstairs, there isn't extra room right now. So it's both, and I can find out more information for each specific school site if you'd like, because I don't have that on the top of my head about the number of empty classrooms at the sites.
Yeah, I mean, that would be useful in that it would help, I guess, the board and staff to understand, is it a situation that, Matt needs to identify a portable that potentially could be located at that facility? Or is it purely a staffing issue that you have an available classroom, you just don't have an available staff? Or maybe, I guess it could be both.
Miss,
bring that back.
Yeah, and I have a question. Ms. Thurlow, can you give us a little bit more background on the funding for the portables that we've used for student care? Do you have that information? I'm sorry, I don't. Okay. I can get that information. Okay, I wonder if Ms. Cabrera has that. Yeah, because my understanding is the portables that we do have been funded through the program. It's a self-funded program, so they have been paid for.
That's right.
Through the revenue generated from.
Yeah, student care has all of the buildings that they're using are purchased through student care income. So they're self-funded, as Dr. Kaligian has stated. So we talk about the setting itself, and Ms. Pollack referred to even using the classroom. We're just not there yet because there's other services going on. But as far as the student care classrooms, they are using their own buildings that were brought into the campuses. So some sites have two, some have one. And just by converse, ACES sites will use a portable or something like that, or a cafeteria or one room where they're sharing. So space is an issue.
So are we saying that we can't use school classrooms? It has to be funded through the program, or it just happens to be that the buildings that we are using are funded?
Right, it just happens to be, we can use classrooms, but we're not currently. And we want to make sure that, as Ms. Pollack stated, that, and, when you're running an aftercare program, there's a lot of things going on. It's a lot of learning, it's a lot of enrichment. There's, as you know, some of you participated in like the STEAM and the science fair.
Absolutely.
So we want kids to be mobile. The classrooms are not always set up that way, and so we want to be, if we do branch out there, and that will be part of the discussion next week. If we do branch into the classrooms, we also have to have an agreement with the teachers and the site. So there's lots of layers here.
How much money is in the fund to fund these portables? Is the fund empty right now?
As far as facility is concerned, in the grant and the funding, there are no facility that I'm aware of. We'll explore some more, but as far there's the grant that we have for this year for this funding does not allow for what we call capital. And the funding that we use for both the student care funding that has been used to purchase a building has been part of the income generated from the program, which does allow for that.
Superintendent Kaligian, I'm wondering if this might be an opportunity to use staff to apply for some grants that could be used to add additional facilities, to pay for these additional facilities for after school care. Or, at the same time, maybe there's a generous individual or individuals within the community that might be willing to contribute towards funds for that purpose. But I guess, we'll get some more information on that.
Yes, and as Ms. Pollack mentioned, there was funding earlier in the year for expanding the day with the original COVID relief dollars. There's also money in this year's budget for that 9-hour day, but I think we have to meet certain eligibility requirements, but we'll look into that further and can bring that back with more specifics.
Thank you.
Okay, any other board questions?
Just to tack on to that, Mr. President, I think, tailing off what Mr. Reed said, I think just a needs assessment would be great to start. And then, if we need funding, we can figure out how to get the funding. But it would be great to know like what we need to solve the problem for sure. So thanks for all your input.
All right, no other board questions. Do we have any public comment? Any on Zoom?
No, Mr. Short.
Okay, bring it back to the board for final comments direction, or do I have a motion?
This is
It's a discussion only, sir.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I forgot this time. Okay. That ends that then. We'll move on to, we have information on item 13, Special Education Learning Recovery Plan and Alternative Dispute Resolution, ADR allocation. Is there any comments on that, Superintendent, or is this just for information only?
This is for information only. These are, again, annual plans, again, spending plans for what we're planning to spend those dollars on. So unless there are questions, it's there for information.
Okay. We'll move on to item 14, reports to the Board of Education Superintendent.
Yes, I'll start by, again, thanking our Student Advisory Board President and all those that are now representing their school sites. And I know you just elected officers at your first meeting too. So thank you for allowing us to attend the meeting with you and talk about school-based health clinics. We really appreciate that opportunity. And look forward to future meetings that we'll be able to dialogue. I also want to acknowledge and thank our visual and performing arts students and their directors for the productions that they are busy preparing for or in the process of already in production. Cordova High has one more weekend of their 12 Angry Jurors drama, and it was very well done. If you're interested, tickets are still available, but both of our other high schools have drama or musical productions coming up too in the next few months. And it's just really good to see our students back on stage, indoors, performing, singing, acting, and look forward to the upcoming productions as well. And then just a shout out for Riverview STEM, who was recently recognized as a U.S. News School of Distinction as a STEM magnet school, elementary school, both in the state and within our county and region. So congratulations to Larry Miller Powell and her team and her students over at Riverview STEM. Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to Board of Education business. So start off with Alice.
Thank you. I don't have too much to say tonight. I just wanted to echo the idea that Mr. Reed had about the video or some sort of educational content for our students to learn more about cell phone use. But other than that, thank you to Dr. Collegian. You mentioned thank you to SAB for letting you be there, but thank you for stopping in and listening to what we had to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hui?
Yeah, thank you. Just a few comments. I first want to start saying, Ms. Miklas, if you're still out there listening somewhere, I want to say I really appreciate your comments at the beginning of the meeting regarding grace. And honestly, grace is something I think about each time I come to one of these meetings. I know there have been times where I've probably displayed it, and I'm certain there are times where I've failed to display it. I was thinking a lot about this during our public hearing tonight and the petition by New Pacific Charter School. I just want to say I can understand the concerns of our district staff. I would just hope that we as a community can bring grace to this discussion by disagreeing while still honoring one another and the intent that we all bring to this room. I believe New Pacific Charter was here tonight because they want to serve the community in Rancho Cordova, just as everyone in this room does. So whatever happens the next two board meetings, I'd like to thank Mr. Kiefer and his team, Dr. Kiefer and his team for the time and energy they've put into this petition. As a graduate student, not very long ago, working towards my master's in science and marital and family therapy, my first practicum experience was at a middle school and high school charter school in Los Angeles. I was incredibly impressed by the work they were doing, and I think from them I've always been interested in any model that's going to benefit our students. So I'd have to be honest that I haven't had the chance to read the entire petition, but I am looking forward to reading through the staff's report and recommendations. Lastly, just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Ruiz, an English teacher over at Vista Del Lago High School. Mr. Ruiz, I just want to thank you for the work you do for our students, including my own son, and let you know in listening to some of our students, it is clear to me that you care about them, and that means a lot to me as a board member and as a parent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Clark?
Can I defer to Mr. Hoover first?
Hey, yes, Mr. Hoover?
I gotta look up something real quick.
All right. Well, I apologize in advance for my comments, the length, but I do have a few words to say. I do want to start off by saying to the Rancho Cordova students working on 12 Angry Jurors that if I can escape this weekend, I really want to see it, but if not, I will live vicariously through those that already have. But I do already have tickets for ELF at Folsom High School, and I'm very excited to attend that next month with my kids. But yes, just to echo the superintendent, I'm excited to have our theater back up and running. It's great to see. I wasn't, I guess, on process expecting not to be able to ask some follow-up questions on the new Pacific Charter School and make some comments. So I think just a little caught off guard by that. So I will, I guess, share my comments right now. I kind of want to start off by addressing some of the problems with the numbers presented by the opposition. I think the opposition to this petition was comparing FCUSD district-wide numbers to, with PCI, which I think is an apples to oranges comparison. And, you know, I think we need to point out and realize that PCI aims to serve and locate in underserved communities. I think a more appropriate comparison, and I think the numbers that I would appreciate the district staff maybe including in their report, would be comparing PCI's achievement gains with students in the districts they're authorized by. Also, potentially, you know, comparing PCI's achievement gains to students in Rancho Cordova, as opposed to FCUSD at large, since that is the main community that they will be serving. So I do think we need to compare apples to apples a little better than the opposition did tonight. And we also need to recognize as a district that kids learn differently. Kids have different needs. I mean, we've never really experienced this more clearly than we did during this pandemic. Some kids thrived in distance learning. Some kids struggled immensely. So kids learn differently, and I've said this probably 1,000 times on this dais that, you know, options for our families are always a good thing. Whatever those options are, we always want to look at providing options for our families and our community and our students. I want to point out that Rancho Cordova Chamber of Commerce has submitted a letter of support for New Pacific Charter School. They are strongly in support of this because they know that opportunities like this are important to seize, not just for the education of our students, but also for the vitality of our community in Rancho Cordova. You know, to get a little deeper into this, I think philosophically, I think we all need to acknowledge and admit the fact that school choice exists for any family that has the means to send their child where they want them to go. That's the reality. If it's a private school and you have the means, you're absolutely able to have school choice. Charter public schools meet the needs of students that seek to exercise choice but don't have the means. And I think that is something that we cannot lose in this discussion. The representative from the statewide CSEA organization mentioned AB 1505, which was a bill to essentially limit access to charter public schools a few years ago. And it's interesting that he brought up that bill almost to support his opposition, because if he was at that hearing, which I don't know if he was, I was, and the tenor in that room was so incredible for anyone that was not able to be there to experience it. There were 500 people that spoke in opposition to that bill that day, and 90% of them were from African American and Hispanic communities. And the one the only African-American member of the legislature, of the Education Committee at that time, who is now our Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, refused to support that bill because of the opposition that existed in that room. It was a bill that limited access to educational opportunities, plain and simple. And that needs to be pointed out as well. That bill did actual harm to communities that need the most help. And I also want to move on to the point that was brought up by the opposition, that this will impact our budget. It's no surprise that the money follows the child. We know this. But here's the reality. First of all, I think the first question we would ask is, if our district is no longer serving a particular student, I don't think we're entitled to the money that is attached to that student. Secondly, as is too often the case, we talk about students as dollar signs rather than focusing on their academic needs. And I think that if we want to continue growing our enrollment, we need to offer programs that meet the needs of families and students. The opposition also stated that FCUSD is better equipped to serve students. If that is the case, and I hope that it is, if that is the case, then we should have no fear of providing our community and our families with a new opportunity for schooling. Because if our schools are truly better equipped to serve our students, families will choose to go there. We often talk about accountability on this dais. And yes, it is our role as the board to hold any independent charter school accountable. And there's many tools at our disposal to do that. Not only do we have to vote to reauthorize a charter school, but a charter school itself has to attract students to its campus. They are not given students. Traditional public schools have a distinct advantage where we are assigned students to our schools. That is not the case for charter schools. It is up to the community to send children to a charter public school. So back to the point of accountability. We obviously have the ability to hold any independent charter school accountable, but the reality is that accountability cuts both ways. Now, I am the parent of a public school student. I don't have any plans to enroll my child in a charter school, but I am also a parent who supports having a charter public school in this district because it is probably one of the greatest accountability mechanisms to ensure that traditional public schools continue to perform at the highest level possible. It provides a level of competition that allows that rises all boats. And I think as a public school parent who strongly supports traditional public schools, we should want to invite that competition and to continue to compete for those students. At the end of the day, our focus needs to be on families and students, not on our bottom line. And so I think I would just encourage and urge staff to do the right thing and recommend an approval of this petition. Given that this was a public hearing, I guess I'm just not used to this process because we've never done it before, but I think it is interesting that the board is not able to provide any sort of direction. So I will simply say that I would urge staff to recommend an approval in their report. And instead of viewing this petition as a threat, we should be viewing it as an opportunity. Districts that have embraced quality charter public schools have thrived. Their presence in districts, as I said, often works to lift all boats, prompting improvements at neighborhood public schools as well. And I just think this is an incredible opportunity for our students and our families and our community that we cannot pass up without really looking at what it does for them, as opposed to looking at what it does potentially for our bottom line or for any other interest in this district. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Park.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to echo the superintendent's comments about the Cordova Performing Arts program, the 12 Angry Jurors. I really enjoyed it, and I was familiar with it as my wife made me sit down and watch the original. So I actually shared the copy of that original with our board president, and want him to watch it to get a better understanding of that play and that production and actually what it meant. I mean, it really made you think throughout the whole process. Last week, I had the opportunity to finally get out and visit some schools. Mather Heights, Navigator, Folsom Middle, Theodore Judah, and Riverview STEM. I want to talk about Theodore Judah because I was actually in their second grade class, and they wanted to show me their Pledge of Allegiance that they wrote, and it was so inspiring, and that's why I kind of deferred to my colleague, Mr. Hoover, because I needed more time to find it, but I couldn't find it. I was going to read it out loud, but I think I sent the copy to the superintendent, and maybe she can get that out and share it. But it was powerful for second graders to write something like that, that included inclusion, equality, and just the whole thing of loving each other. And I mean, when they actually made their own beat to it, it was to music. And I mean, I'm an emotional guy. It was like, I just wanted to cry. But it was very powerful, and I hope that the superintendent would be able to share that. So kudos to that second grade class. Back to Riverview STEM, congratulations on their recognition. It's a big accomplishment. And it just made me think of so many things during this whole conversation with PCI. And, you know, I didn't say what if. I wanted to say as if. I wanted to say as if we don't have a Project Lead the Way, as if we don't have a baccalaureate program, as if we don't have STEM, as if we don't have a charter, as if we don't have social emotional learning. You know, it just, and I'm still going to keep an open mind. Trust me, I like to look at everything before I make a decision. But forgive me for saying this. The way that you guys made that presentation kind of hurt my feelings that is like, well, you don't have anything in Folsom Cordova Unified, therefore we're the best charter. Now, like I said, I'm still going to look at everything. Now, I'm not saying no. But one of the points that you guys made is that we care. Well, I can tell you what, everybody in this room cares. I mean, we wouldn't be sitting on this dais. We wouldn't have cabinet members, and we wouldn't have a superintendent that cares about our kids in the community, especially ours that are at risk. I mean, I honestly, I wrote down 12 questions that I just wanted to ask, that I want clarity on. And I guess that has to wait until our next meeting.
No, you can give it to the superintendent.
Well, I will give them to the superintendent then. But another thing that you said is that, I mean, when you use that caveat of we care, I got teachers over in that area that care about those kids. And you guys almost made it seem like, well, they don't care about you, so join us because we care. Our staff cares. Our teachers care. Our principals, who I had an opportunity to talk to each and every one of them that I visited, they care. And I mean, they're going through it. And I applaud our principals for doing the job that they're doing, and maybe encourage our board to maybe go out and be a principal for the day. But I'm still open to hear you and listen to you. I mean, I'm not saying no, I'm not for or against, because I want to look at the big picture. You know, and yeah, I do want to consider, that's where I'll probably have a little disagreement with my colleague, that I do want to look at the budget because it will be a structural deficit. And I said this back in June, we're going to be hurting, and I'm going to be real. We are. But I understand, and like I said, I believe in options and opportunities. You have is it a resource center in Oak Park? My office is right around the corner. I'm going to walk over there and check you guys out. Honestly, I am. And sit down and talk to you guys. But like I said, when you said that we care, it's like almost a slap in the face to our teachers and our staff as if they don't care. And I know they do. Every time I talk to them, I know they do. They're on, our teachers and principals are on the verge of burnout. But they say, you know, what's keeping us here are our kids. So maybe you guys might want to change your pitch a little bit that, you know, especially coming to us as a board, we care. We do care about our kids. And like I said, I believe in options and opportunities. I want the best for them. But I mean, you know, like I said, I'm going to forward questions to the superintendent, and hopefully they can get answered. So hopefully I'll see you soon at your Oak Park facility. I'm not sure when, probably sometime beginning of next week. Moving forward, I will, I'm excited about ELF, and I wanted to make a comment about that. I know that a letter came out from CDPH that we still have to wear masks, and they'll look at it after, I guess, the first of the year. I don't know. I totally disagree with that, especially on a stage production, that kids most likely are fully vaccinated or are willing to take a test to perform without masks. But, you know, I'm just hoping that maybe they change their mind on that, honestly. Other than that, that's all I have. Oh, no, one more thing. And Mr. Maroon, can you look into that CIF portion of our athletes that go to a charter school? Because I'm not sure, but I don't think it happens. I don't think it can happen, but I could be wrong. So other than that, that's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reed.
Thank you. I'm going to reserve my comments tonight exclusively on the charter school item. Just a process question, Mr. President. Am I able to ask three quick questions of the superintendent? Well, or if I can't, I can just put it into like a...
Write it to him. Yeah.
Well, I'll mention it right now as a suggestion rather than a question. I was wondering if staff had toured PCI's existing schools. If they haven't, I think that might be a good opportunity to check out their facilities before the staff makes a decision. I would also suggest superintendent and her staff reaching out to the school districts that PCI's existing schools are located and have a conversation with their superintendent just to see how the relationship is and how and any thoughts that they have related to PCI as well. And I think that would help with the staff's decision making as well on their recommendation. I'll start by saying that I'm a strong public school proponent, but I have to tell you, folks, I don't think we have anything to worry about with a little competition. We don't. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have to do our due diligence. PCI might be the perfect charter school to welcome into our community, but it might not be. We have to do our due diligence. We might approve them, we might not. We have to do our due diligence. But the one thing I just want to caution is that we don't turn this into an exercise that we view competition as something that could be harmful to us or something scary to be scared of. It's not. The fact of the matter, and my colleague, Mr. Hoover, pointed this out, competition helps our school district. If we care about our school district, we should be embracing the competition because it forces us to do even better, because we will want those students to remain with us and not go to the charter school. And then the charter school will want to outdo us because they're going to want to get the students to come to them. And it's a perpetual cycle. It just constantly improves FCUSD. It would constantly improve the charter school, whether it's PCI or some other charter school. And in the end, who wins? the students win. This is nothing to be scared about. Competition is good. It's the free market. Monopolies are not healthy. So, I just, I feel very passionate about, let's not turn this into a negative. Let's figure out how this is a win-win for everybody. And I think competition, will provide that. Again, I'm not saying that PCI may or may not be the right school, but whether it's approved or not, I'm sure we'll get future applications. So it's more of a mindset. But this kind of goes to another thing that, I spoke about at length back in 2018 when I was running. I spoke about it, actually my colleagues here will probably remember this as well. I spent a good year and a half talking about this before the pandemic happened. And I haven't spoken about it since the pandemic happened because we've been a little distracted on some other things. But, I'm a huge proponent of FCUSD creating small academies. I spoke at that at length, including at a number of board meetings. I think we need to think outside the box. Because these large comprehensive high schools, these large comprehensive middle schools are not the best environment for everyone. Some people are seeking smaller environments. Why do we have to only have high schools of 1,600 or more students? Why can't we have a high school of 200? Why can't we have an academy that's focused on foreign language? Why can't we have an academy that's focused on trade school? And that's all they do. I mean, other districts do that. Why can't we? I mean, I know for a fact, I know some people who've left this district to go to adjoining districts that have smaller high schools because they just don't see their student thriving at Folsom High School that has 2,600 students. They want their student to thrive, but they don't want their student to get lost. Now, don't get me wrong, 2,600 students, some students do thrive in that environment. But, and again, I guess I'm a little off topic on the charter school, but it did create this opportunity for me to remember what I was saying pre-pandemic. That there's so much opportunity for us to think outside the box and do unique things that allow all students to find a place that they can thrive in. And just because New Charter wants to do that doesn't mean that we can't do that ourselves. But not in place of a charter, in addition to a charter or not. So again, I see this competition as a good thing. And again, in the end, it's just going to help all of us. So, I'm very much looking forward to the staff's thoughts on this at the next meeting. The one thing I just wanted to highlight. So, New Charter, PCI had mentioned that at the maximum they envision about 400 students. 400 students is 2%, 2% of our entire population. So we would have 98%, and they potentially might have 2%. Is that really that scary? Are we going to collapse because we can't handle 2% of our students going somewhere else? I mean, we had more than 2% that left us by the way we handled this pandemic. So anyway, those are my thoughts on the charter school. And I look forward to our continuing dialogue on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I want to echo the same things that the drama was amazing. The 12 Angry Jurors was phenomenal, and it was great to see the kids do that right out the debut. So it was phenomenal. The superintendent, Mr. Clark, was there and had a good house full. So I'm really excited that Mr. Clark actually brought me the one with Henry Fonda in there. So I'm going to go back and watch that with my daughter because she was in drama school for many, many years. It was wonderful. So I'm really glad to see the kids back to engage again. So a lot of smiling faces. I do want to talk about my thoughts too. I have, since I'm the senior board member here, been here almost 2 decades. It's not the first time we've seen charters. We've seen more charters than I can even count on my hands and feet. We have our own charter. And many years ago, charters were filing a lot of petitions here. And I was on the board, and I want to give a little context to why we are who we are and what we've done. We are a great district. Back then, we were just good. But going to good to great does need competition. So we were feeling a lot of competition back then. Back then, we were just the traditional school. We didn't have STEM or Project Lead the Way or any of these things. So what I thought back then, just like you're saying, competition's healthy. But I come from the private sector and I did startup businesses. You want to compete, you see other businesses out there, but you don't let the business take over your potential market. You create something to compete. That's just basic economics, free enterprise. And I brought to the board at that time, the superintendent, I said, I was in marketing and I did startup businesses. I said, why can't we think the same way? It was traditionally that, we've never done that before. Well, I said, well, why don't we be open-minded? Can we do better? We're just good. Can we go to great? Let's do a survey. Where are the kids going? We didn't even know. So we did a survey. We found out around areas, found out all the charters were taking kids and folks there because they were providing something that we didn't provide, which is great. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. Charter's supposed to bring something, provide something, augment a district that is not provided. I said, well, why can't we do the same thing? Well, nobody turned around and said, well, yeah, I guess we could. We've never tried that before. Well, let's do that. Well, guess what? We did the same thing. We marketed ourselves. They will come. We built it. We did Project Lead the Way. We did STEMmer. We're just getting started. We did a lot of things. And guess what? The petitions started going away because the kids stayed. We did something. We went good to great. This is an opportunity to do the same thing. No harm here, but we can also do the same thing you guys are doing because this is a great district. I'm not saying I'm going to be open-minded and look at what you're doing, but we already have STEM education. We already have Project Lead. We have that. We did all those things because we were already under the competition model. And look at what we have come in over these years. Look at the staff. This is amazing. We were just an average school district back then. This is a great district. We have the #1 superintendent of California right here. #1. Why can't we do the same? And I agree with that. So when I looked at this virtual academy, I started doing my research. I'm going to do my research. I know I want the staff to do the petitions like we always go through it. But the Washington Post put out, charter schools. I know there was a lot of hip-hop about this. CSBA, I'm a delegate of CSBA, and this came out of CSBA. The National Alliance of Public Charters, they're saying, hey, they're broadcasting that 7% of the surge of charter schools enrolling is rising during the pandemic school years. And parents are voting on their feet, according to the new report, but they're failing to report that most of these were charter virtual schools because of COVID. You were saying, why are we went out and sampled absenteeism. Well, yeah, during COVID, there was 30% disengagement and all around in all our district. So even where you go sample is going to be absent. We had 30% of absent. We are still trying to deal with the fallout from COVID. If that's where you're going to help us, that'd be great. We're trying to get the kids back to engage, but that's a huge. But as it shows in here, the 131% of growth was mostly in certain areas like Utah. Cyber charter schools embody which they call the worst characteristics of charter school world and none of the best. They have the worst student outcomes, the most prominent instance of fraud and scandal, the most egregious profiteering. In 2019-20, graduating rate for cyber charters was just 52%, far below the overall average national graduation rate of only 85%. according to the recent report of the National Education Policy Center. I can go on and on and on, all these surveys and studies, but it comes down to the local. What are you guys doing? What's your success rate? And what can we do? I know you're mostly virtual, trying to go into classroom. I think that was kind of mentioned tonight, right? So I would like to see what the success rate is in class with you guys. I'd like to go visit, see what you're doing. If that's something we cannot provide, then I think that would be a good thing. But if we could provide it, we have a virtual academy already. There would be no problem creating a virtual small academy right now through the smallest classes and maybe expand. I would challenge staff to think out of the box. That's what competition's about. We do have it, so we do serve all our students. And I just wanted to give the history on that, because if you're going to help, and it is all about the kids, if we're going to do better, I think we can do the same from going to great and even greater. Again, Riverview STEM just got the major award. That took, how long did we start that? Over a decade ago. Now we got the award. And that all started from competition. There you go, you guys. We are already doing it. We're already doing it. We're doing great. And we shouldn't stop there. So, again, the presentation that you guys gave, I want to thank you for that. But I've seen a lot of them, and I think I kind of go with Mr. Clark. It felt like a sales job. I was looking for more substance, more, I don't know, I was looking for something. It just seems like you got a lot of people coming up and just, here, yes, please, please, please. But I wanted to hear more about the kids. I didn't hear a whole lot, too much, just a little. But I want to go do a site visit. I still want to look what you guys can do. So I just want to say that those are my thoughts, and I kind of concur with Mr. Reed and Mr. Hoover, but we are doing that. We can do the same thing. And I think we're in a position like going from good to great to even better. So that's all I'm going to say tonight about that. And I look forward to the second hearing, look into what the staff finds out, and look at all the information. So with that said, is there, I think that's all we have, the motion. I think there's the last part we have in the, here is the future meetings, the 12-month board calendar, that's on there every time. Any questions on that, ask, and then.
Yeah, President Shore, I have a question about that. I know in 2 meetings on the 18th, we will have the staff report and recommendation, if I'm understanding things correctly. In our next meeting, will we have an opportunity to discuss the charter school as well?
Usually you have the hearing, the second hearing, and then right after the discussion action deliberation.
Okay. I mean, I wouldn't mind if we could have some discussion on that. I would be open to it. I think it would be worth discussing. Sounds like we have a lot that we need to get through.
How that goes. That's not how they usually do it. You have
I don't know if it's legal to do that.
Right, usually after the hearing, then you have the discussion action. Okay. That's just how we've historically done it.
If that's how it's historically done, it's fine. Is the rest of the board open to changing that for this?
I don't know.
Will the report be ready by then?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the report will be ready. Just as a reminder, there's 15 major criteria that staff and I are going through. And it's what they have to respond to as well when they're putting together the petition. It comes from the state charter requirement, and that's part of the accountability piece too. So as we're going through those criteria, we're looking at it closely, and then for those things that we are not finding, we send the questions to Dr. Kiefer, and he's been sending responses. But it's a little bit of a tedious process because there's a lot to that, and we're still in the process of doing that. And then from that, we develop, the summary of what we found based on responses back, and, maybe what we didn't find. And from that, it's more objective than subjective by using that checklist. And so the recommendations will come from the findings from what we found, either in the petition ourselves or from responses back from the petitioner.
Yeah, and that's how they do it.
I would say that 2 meetings to make such a major decision seems kind of short. I do understand what Mr. Huey and Mr. Hoover are saying. To do our due diligence I mean, we heard the presentation tonight. We're going to get a staff report. We're going to ask questions, and then we're going to be expected to vote on something just simply based on some, questions that we have at the next meeting and the staff report. It kind of feels like it needs to be a little bit more thoughtful than 2 meetings. So if there is an opportunity to hear more from the public or even for the board to dialogue with staff at the next meeting, just so that, have it agendized so that, no decision, just discussion. How could that be a bad thing before we get to?
Might I suggest that there's also the opportunity, if there's consensus with the petitioner, that we can extend the timeline from 60 days to 90 days, which would give us one more board meeting.
Okay.
If we weren't ready to make a decision by November 18th. I would like to err on that side of more time than less time.
Sure.
Because we want to come back with thoughtful responses too, and we want to have as much dialogue and interaction with the petitioner before we come forward to do our due diligence.
And we'll get the report in like a couple weeks before that meeting, probably.
Yes, when we post the next public hearing, which has to be 2 weeks prior to the public hearing, the report has to be prepared. So we're kind of backwards mapping it from that.
Okay. We can decide at that time, right?
We can, but we can
But they have to-
dialogue and see if there's
during the
consensus. If
board meeting,
we
yeah.
need
Okay.
to extend it to the, up
If
to
so
90
needed.
days.
Okay, we'll do that then. Okay. All right, we do have a motion for adjournment.
I'll move.
You have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourn, thank you.